Well, you know where it is it's down there that they freeze.
Yeah, everything's just yeah, everything in FDOT is in a public arena. One commissioner, yeah, I know the head attorney here in District 6, Alicia Trujillo, she is awesome.
I'm commissioner. I'm Commissioner McDreamy. That was one of the characters. That's our finance director.
As easy as that. Oh, I'm sorry. You wanted me to print that. I'm sorry. I don't need my iPad. I might have it. I might be able to pull it up easily. Are you on the G-Win? Oh shit, maybe I'm not. Oh yes, I am. What's this one, right? Are you gonna keep it there, or you want me to? No, she wants me to print it. Oh. That one is? Yeah, but can you make a video? To have people log into the meeting. Okay, and I think I just sent you one more paper. Can you bring me up papers? Send them to me. I'll separate them. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. No, she supports it. She supports it. She supports leading in. I'll look into it. Yeah, I'll look into it. So I'm finally leaving Puerto Rico. When the storm is coming, it's past Puerto Rico and St. Thomas, and then it'll develop to something bigger. It's worked out. Who's running the show? I really hope for the sake of the city that this goes good.
Just a printout of something I already emailed all of you.
Morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Turn mic on.
Yeah.
Good morning. Does everybody have their mic on?
Check.
Okay, all right.
See.
I'll ask Madam City Attorney to begin the
Recording
meeting
in
here.
progress.
Good morning, Vice Mayor. Yes, as a preliminary matter, we do need a motion and approval of the commission for the mayor to participate and vote via Zoom. It's my understanding the mayor had travel that could not be rearranged and this meeting couldn't be rescheduled. So we do have a quorum in the room. That's important for the record. But we just need a motion to determine the mayor can participate
it.
via Zoom due to extraordinary circumstances.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Thank you.
Okay, so, good morning, everybody. I appreciate the time and effort that you all have taken to get prepared for today's meeting on some very important topics that will impact our city for, the future and for the current year. So, Madam City Attorney, I'd ask you to outline the protocol here for voting requirements on a budget item on a millage rate maintenance or reduction.
So I will defer to the budget director with respect to the exact numbers on the millage rates, but generally, in order to, give me one moment. I'll just outline the required votes. So what can be approved by a majority vote is the rolled back rate adjusted by the percentage change in the per capita Florida personal income. That's the maximum rate that can be adopted by a majority vote. A rate up to 110% of the maximum rate, which was the rolled back rate adjusted by the percentage change in per capita Florida personal income, would require the 4/5 vote. And then a rate that exceeds 110% of that, which is not being discussed, would require a unanimous vote.
I have a quick question. The decision we make today isn't necessarily to agree on a millage rate, but it's basically create the ceiling on the
That's it.
millage, because the millage rate will be decided in September.
Correct.
Correct. Yes, it will create a ceiling. And with that being said, Madam Budget Director, I'd ask you to outline what the 4/5 vote requirements are, what the majority vote requirements are for the millage rate setting.
Give me 1 second. So I will just refer to my screen for a moment. So I guess I'll start with saying that the resolution that's presented to you today is to set the millage rate, maintaining the current millage rate of 5.559. That's the resolution that was presented last meeting, and that's the resolution that was included in the agenda for this meeting. And so the current millage rate of 5.559 requires a 4/5 vote. As the city attorney said, the majority maximum millage, and that's the second to last one that's listed on this slide, of 5.4199 is the maximum millage that could be set with a 3/5 vote. Anything between 5.4199 and 5.559 or greater requires a 4/5 vote. So I'll go to this section of the slide, which shows the current millage rate of 5.559. That requires a 4/5 vote. 0.5% reduction to that millage rate would require 4/5 vote. 1% reduction to that millage rate would require 4/5 vote. A 2% reduction to the millage rate would require a 4/5 vote. And once again, the majority maximum rate of 5.4199 is the highest millage rate that can be set with a 3/5 vote. And then the rollback rate, of course, of 5.1281 would be, that could be adopted by this commission, but that would be the rate that would be imposed on us if we don't make a decision here today.
Right, so if we had a split vote 2-2, or, we just didn't reach a conclusion, that's the only time that the rollback rate would be imposed, correct?
Yes, and so just to be clear, the rollback rate would be a $10 million reduction to the current budget estimate that was presented to this commission. And so just for a point of clarity, when we came to you in June, prior to June, on the estimates for capital, on the budget estimates that we had at the time, we typically, in preparing our budget, anticipate anywhere from a 3 to 5% increase in values. So we count on an increase in property values between 3 to 5% in any given year to cover our normal increases for the increases that the city incurs, right? Health insurance increases, increases for merits and COLAs, increases for contracts that we have. And so at that time, we were estimating a 5% increase to property values. And so we were estimating not that we would get a $10 million increase in revenue, but that we would get about a $6 million increase in revenue. And when we prepared our budget estimate, which we then brought and said, we think we're going to have this much for capital, let's prioritize capital projects, we were anticipating a $6 million increase.
So I'm going to ask you just to pause, since
Absolutely.
I want to make sure that we have the mayor available on Zoom. Is he on?
Mayor is on Zoom, yes.
Okay, can we, Mayor, can you hear all of us?
Yes, Madam Vice Mayor. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to be on Zoom and for my colleagues supporting that. I can hear you, yes.
And how long do you have to be with us on Zoom this morning?
So I have about 45 minutes, and then I'm catching my flight, and then I'll be able to log in after if it's required. I have a brief statement, and I also wanted to make sure that the individuals who are present, the residents, the business owners, are also aware, staff, and my colleagues on the commission. I'm providing my colleagues with a copy of the speech that I'll be giving this morning. I'm also providing a copy of the letter that was provided to all of us from the Miami-Dade County property appraiser, Pedro Garcia, on June 30th, 2023, where he advocates for a rate reduction, a significant rate reduction. And I'm also providing an email exchange between myself and the clerk and my staff, which details that this is the first meeting in 11 and a half years that I will not be present at, that I will be missing, but I'll still be on Zoom. But I wanted to put that for the record because I've heard several people say that, how could I miss such an important meeting? I did my best to be at the meeting. I offered multiple different times, multiple different days, but we weren't able to coordinate a time. So I'm still present, and I appreciate my colleagues for allowing me the privilege to join them today via Zoom.
Okay, I'm not hearing you now. Are you still trying to speak to us?
No, I'm not. I just stopped.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So since you only have a few minutes, I'm going to ask that you go ahead and speak now in case you start getting boarding calls to get on the plane.
Perfect. Well, Vice Mayor, thank you, and I appreciate you you chairing the meeting. You're doing a wonderful job, and thank you to staff. Thank you to staff for all your hard work. Thank you to the residents, to the business community, to all the associations, to the chamber, to everyone that I met with, so that we could have a real discussion in regards to the possibility of cutting the millage rate. Like I've said before, Coral Gables is a home to a diverse array of restaurants, and businesses always contribute to our tax base. Our central business district, our CBD, combined accounts for over 40% of our tax revenue. By lowering taxes, we can help further stimulate economic growth encouraging more businesses to set up their shop and contribute to our vibrant local economy while continuing to maintain world-class services. Throughout the past decade, this is an important fact. Coral Gables has benefited from a dramatic increase in revenue. Last year alone, our city collected an additional almost $24 million in regards to property tax revenue over the prior year. That's a year-over-year increase of more than 400%. Furthermore, even with a 2% millage rate reduction, our city can expect to receive more than $7 million in additional property tax revenue. Therefore, there is no doubt that we can maintain our high quality services and infrastructure. This economic good fortune presents us with a wonderful opportunity to give back to our residents by reducing their tax burden. Fiscal responsibility includes recognizing when to turn surplus revenues to the community, fostering trust and goodwill among our citizens. Lowering the millage rate can directly improve the quality of life for our residents, making home ownership and living in Coral Gables more affordable. This is particularly beneficial for our elderly residents on fixed income. For young families, this reduction could mean the difference between renting and owning their first home in our city beautiful. I would like to address a crucial matter that has been the topic of much debate within our community. Vice Mayor Anderson and my proposal to lower the millage rate for Coral Gables residents by 2%. This initiative is designed to provide long overdue financial relief without compromising exceptional city services that we all cherish and rely on. Lowering the millage rate is a step toward offering much needed economic relief to our residents at a time when the cost of living continues to rise. By easing the tax burden, we would join neighboring municipalities like Key Biscayne, Miami, West Miami, and others, including Miami-Dade County last year, showing a regional commitment to support our communities by lowering the millage rate. Last year on June 30th, like I mentioned, in a formal news release by Miami-Dade County property appraiser Pedro J. Garcia, he urged local governments to cut the property tax rates to compensate for a 3% increase in taxable values awaiting homeowners in their 2023 bills. He stated, this year's unprecedented record growth of almost $48 billion of taxable value has provided our local taxing authority with a windfall. However, I am concerned with the average homeowner and small business that may struggle with increased property taxes. The county and many cities saw significant growth. Therefore, I'm asking our local governments to consider a reduction in their tax rates. This is coming directly from Pedro Garcia. I've included that letter as part of the public record. Various municipalities in South Florida are considering lowering taxes and are lowering taxes due to the rise in inflation, cost of groceries, gas, skyrocketing insurance premiums, and their overall cost of living. The regional trend underscores the feasibility and benefits of such measures, ensuring that Coral Gables remains competitive and supportive to our residents. Property values in Coral Gables have seen substantial growth over the past 3 years, outpacing many neighboring municipalities. As of June 1st, 2024, the estimated property taxable values for the city stand at $24.5 billion, marking an impressive 8.2% increase from the previous year's $22.6 billion. This total is comprised of $22.254 billion from existing properties and $246 million from new construction. Contrary to claims that our population is increasing, and this is important because I heard that many people stated, "Oh, our population is increasing. We're increasing. We need more services." Our latest census data has revealed that the city has experienced a drop in population. For this reason, we are no longer members of the TPO, which is a shame. And I enjoyed serving on that board, which requires a minimum of 50,000 residents to receive representation. This leads one to ask, why is our budget increasing so dramatically if our population is not? So let's set the record straight. It's unfortunate that some continue to resort to disingenuous scare tactics, misleading residents by falsely claiming that the city services are at stake and that the services we provide will suffer. Let me be clear, this is patently false. The goal of lowering the millage rate is to provide relief to all residents, and we are committed to maintaining our world-class services without compromise. If a municipal government with a $250 million budget cannot implement a modest $2.6 million reduction without compromising essential services, it raises serious questions about our fiscal management and structural stability. I, for one, do not believe we are structurally unstable. I believe we simply lack the will to make difficult choices. I also believe we can do much better. It is important to note that Florida law mandates that tax reductions be applied uniformly across all property taxes. Claims suggesting that this tax cut is designated to favor a select group are inaccurate and misleading. State law makes it impossible to tailor tax cuts to benefit any particular segment of property owners. Every property in Coral Gables, from small business owners to large businesses, will see the same percentage reduction in their property tax. I encourage all residents to familiarize themselves with all these facts. Our goal is to foster an informed dialogue about the proposal based on accurate information and a clear understanding of how property tax reductions work under Florida law. Lowering the millage rate is a strategic and compassionate move that reflects our city's commitment to the financial well-being of our residents. Our responsibility to use increased revenue wisely and our desire to continue fostering a thriving, dynamic community. By leveraging alternative funding mechanisms, we also achieve this goal without compromising our capital projects or quality of service provided to our residents. So I have a compromise for you. In the spirit of collaboration and responsive governance, I've carefully considered the concerns raised by my colleagues on the commission. Last year, I proposed a 5% reduction in the millage rate, which 3 members of the commission opposed. This year, after thorough analysis and in recognition of the needs for a balanced approach, I initially suggested a 2% reduction, which 3 members of the commission opposed. However, I understand that governance is about finding common ground and moving forward. With this in mind, I would like to propose a compromise, a 1% reduction in the millage rate. While this reduction is far more modest than what I would prefer, it nonetheless represents a middle path that acknowledges both the need for fiscal prudence and tax relief for the residents. Half a loaf is better than no bread at all. What's more, if you reflect our shared commitment to the well-being of Coral Gables and its citizens, while it may not be what I think it needs to be, it would be an important step in the right direction. It would demonstrate our ability as a commission to work together and to find a constructive solution. This compromise proposal balances our residents' desire for tax relief with our fiscal responsibilities. By adopting this measured approach, we demonstrate our unity and commitment to serving all Coral Gables citizens. I urge my fellow commissioners to join me in supporting this initiative. Together, we can implement a policy that provides meaningful relief, serves our city's best interests, and demonstrates our ability to govern collaboratively and responsibly. With that being said, Madam Chair, if I may, I'd like to make a motion to lower our millage rate by 1%.
I'll second that motion.
There has to be discussion.
I'm sure there can be discussion. Absolutely can be discussion. I didn't say there couldn't be discussion. So we can proceed to discussion. Senator Garcia, thank you so much for being here today. Appreciate you being present. And just so the public can also see that you're here in the room, would you mind just coming up to the podium? Because I'd like to thank you personally for all the work that you do for our state, the monies that you have brought back to our community over the past several years while you've been in office. 2022, we brought back $2.5 million. In 2023, there was $3.48 million. And, that's a total of almost $6 million, $5.98 million. And I'm rounding these numbers, obviously. But it wasn't without tireless efforts by yourself and other colleagues in Tallahassee that these funds were brought back. So thank you for being here. I've listened carefully to not only your requests, but the requests of other state reps that, that Coral Gables needs to lower its millage rate. And I'm glad you're here today. If you'd like to participate, please do.
Thank you. And I'd like to appreciate all of you for working together. It's difficult times that we're going through, and this is such a worthy city of collaborating and making sure that we're all on the same page in order to make sure that the people that have lived here for a very, very long time, by the way, we also welcome the new ones, continues to substantively continue to have the lifestyle that they've always had, but considering the current, economic situation that we're living in. There are two subjects that overwhelm my Senate office recently. It's the issues with insurance, it's the issues with condo associations. And wherever it is that we can cut corners and help our constituents, would be very much welcomed. So I appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. So, with that being said, I'd like to start in order of seniority. Commissioner Menendez, if you'd like to add some comments to the record on this very important discussion.
I think finding a common ground, I think, is important. I think also it's important to recognize that at least the feedback I've gotten from the members of the community or residents is overwhelmingly not to cut the millage rate, or at least not lower the ceiling on the millage rate. Obviously, we come back in September for the final number. I'm all for working together, finding common ground, but what that common ground is there's an opportunity to discuss and debate and find the right path forward. But I appreciate the mayor understanding that we need to work together. And in fact, I mentioned it before, we've agreed unanimously on over 90% of our votes. So hopefully this is a day that we can come together unanimously and help move the city forward. Those are my initial comments.
Okay.
She swore in first. I don't know. What seniority?
Well,
You're older.
you got to.
I'm older. There you go.
Yeah, well, you didn't have to go to a runoff, so you get to go
All right.
first.
First off, thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. Thank you, Senator, for being here. I echo some of Commissioner Menendez's comments. The overwhelming response that we've had over the last 3 weeks from residents against a lowering of the millage rate is something that, having been in politics for over 25 years, I have never seen before. But we have a very educated group of residents in this city who understand the financial situation our city faces. I can understand Pedro Garcia's memo to all municipalities throughout Miami-Dade County. Coral Gables is a little bit different. We have an unfunded liability that is really an elephant on our backs whenever we're making financial decisions. Every time that we hear, and even former city manager Iglesias would always tell me, once we pay off our unfunded liability debt, we will have an additional $27 million to address capital projects that we have. Unlike, West Miami, Key Biscayne, other municipalities who have cut the millage rate over the last few years, we also have a large number of aging infrastructure that needs to be repaired. We have the Alhambra Water Tower. We have City Hall, which we've been trying to get, and Senator, you've tried to get us funding in Tallahassee. We haven't been able to secure that funding. These are projects that are important for us going forward because as we continue to kick the can down the road, all these projects become way more expensive to address, and I think staff in this room has seen how a lot of these projects have ballooned. The fixing of Burger Bob's, we started with estimates of $400,000 and $600,000, and today we're paying almost $2 million in the period of 4 years to do the exact same work. There was a gentleman who was at the town hall on Tuesday, and he said he had been in the city for many years, but he said, don't lower the millage rate. Use the funding that we have today to address the projects that we currently need. We have over $9 million of sidewalks that need to be repaired. And Senator, you've been instrumental in getting us some funding in Tallahassee. This year, Senator Calatayud and yourself and Demi Busata Cabrera were able to get us line items for $1.85 million. Unfortunately, the governor vetoed that. But thanks to your work, your efforts, and Senator Calatayud and Representative Busata Cabrera, we were able to try to secure $1.85 million. We didn't get that this year. The governor vetoed those projects. So we now need to supplement some of that funding and figure out a way to get those projects moving forward. We're talking about $2.6 million. I commend the mayor for making a compromise offer of 1%. but it's also a decision that does not need to be made today. Why do I say that? We have a Teamsters contract which represents 360 employees in our city, which is currently being negotiated. We don't know what the cost of that contract is going to be. We have a lot of question marks in the air that should be answered by September. I think in September, we will be able to make an educated decision, a financially sound decision on where we should be and how much we can cut. Because we're talking about 1% today, maybe come September, we realize, hey, we can cut the 2%. But today, I don't think we're in a position to say, let's lower the ceiling and put ourselves in a situation where we're going to hurt the city financially, because this is not just a one-year decision. This millage rate cut is going forward. And as I said here last budget hearing, I am not in favor of raising the millage rate. So if the plan is to lower the millage rate this year so that future commissions have to raise the millage rate, I'm a no. Just because I don't believe we need to continue to raise millage rates and increase the tax burden on our residents. The responses that we've gotten via email have been over 65% against cutting the millage rate. People want to keep it the same. People don't want their services affected. And Mr. Mayor, I'll have to disagree with you on the facts you were stating that this will not affect services. We had every single director at the town hall meeting address what the impacts would be on each one of their departments. And we still have a ton of new needs that were not funded in this year's budget. And thank you, Commissioner Castro, for organizing that. It was a great presentation. It was an eye-opening presentation for not just residents, but some of us on the dais who maybe hadn't crunched those numbers in depth.
Thank you.
But I think we need to be responsible today. We need to be responsible in September, but we don't have all the cards on the table today. In September, we will. And we don't have to affect the millage rate until September. That's when we have to make the final decision. And we'll have the ability to make that decision, hopefully with all the facts. I'm hoping Teamsters contract is completed. But we've had numerous things that have changed over the last year, which have also impacted our budget. We hear about, well, it's going up $10 million. Our costs have gone up just the same way that the residents' costs have gone up. Our insurance has gone up. Our expenses have gone up. Construction costs have gone up. We have numerous projects that the city's undertaking. We have traffic calming that we're trying to do. We have our sidewalk repairs. We have our street repairs, our drainage projects. All these are things that are expensive to take on. And as we move forward, the question we always get from residents is, when is my project going to get completed? We cannot continue to kick the can down the road on our projects. I think today, let's work on a compromise for September on where we can be. Today, let's vote on a ceiling that we can sustain. In September, once we have all of the cards on the table, let's figure out what the number should be. Thank you.
Commissioner Castro? You
The
have
mayor,
floor.
the mayor stated that services were not going to be compromised and that those were scare tactics. Is he insinuating that every director that was in my town hall was lying? Or that they're making up stuff? If he's still there, I would love that response.
Yeah, I can give you that response. Can you hear me?
I hear you perfect.
Okay. That's exactly what I said. I've been involved in the city for almost 12 years. When I got here, and I'm happy that Commissioner Franz mentioned it, about dedication to fiscal stewardship. When I got here, our pension was funded to the tune of 51%, and we're getting to 80%. And as a finance director, I tell you, we have grown our 13th check to a huge amount, almost, I think it's $7 million a year. And we've also socked away into our rainy day fund in our reserves over $50 million, which is something that was not even half that when I got here. So I've been dedicated, trust me, to fiscal stewardship. And you know how you address projects? Very simply, like you do it in the private sector. You budget. You budget for years and years and years. The residents here, like you said, are very smart. They're very astute. They understand scheduling. They understand funding. They understand. But again, the issue's simple. We have to live within our means. You know how you address it? This year, the manager is requesting to hire 24 or 25 people. I would hire, as I said before, and the chief said it relatively before, this committee and also at your budget hearings, we stated very clearly that the commission has said we will not cut police, we will not cut fire, we will not cut public safety. We will hire the 5 police officers, we will hire the 5 firefighters, and we will hire potentially, I think there's one that needs to be for IT, and then there's another one that the chief needs in regards to the body worn cameras. So I'm flexible, but we don't need to hire an additional 10 people. We can live within our means. That would be the largest amount of people hired in the city and since I've been here. That's unnecessary. Every single hire has a massive tail and a responsibility that we have to pay in pensions later. So yes, we can. We can live within our means. We can lower costs. And just think about it. If you lower the budget by 1%, you're telling me in a $260, $270, $280 million budget, you can't find 1%. Everybody has to find 1% in the private sector. Everybody has to find 1% in their own personal residence. So I think that we as a city should live responsibly within our means and find the additional monies and give the tax relief to the residents who haven't had a tax reduction in over a decade, while other cities are capable of doing it. So I think we can do it, and I think it's a good opportunity to do it. I think it's a good opportunity for us to come together again. I'll be boarding the plane now in a few moments, but it's been a pleasure. I know this commission can do it and come together and get it done. There's multiple different opportunities, and I think that it's a true possibility.
So
I'm sorry. I'm not done.
yeah, you have another question
Yeah,
for the mayor?
I'm sorry. He still didn't answer my question as, do you feel that the directors are lying?
So let me,
I can answer that question. Well, the problem with government is a very simple one. The more money you give to government will never turn down money. What we need to do is we need to take a step back and do real budget analysis, but department by department by department.
So
And I think the vice mayor can explain to you a little bit about how it's done every single year in the rears, and how when more money comes in, and the department will always ask for something because they always have needs, just like we all do in our own personal life. But we have to live within our means.
Okay.
So the presentation, and I'll answer the question directly for you. No, the directors didn't lie, but the presentation assumed a 2% and a 3% cut. This is under a 1% scenario. So that's why during the presentation I brought up to the fact to you that you did not present to the residents so that they had complete information to make a decision upon, that all of us, every single member of this dais has received a variety of different options dealing with the budget. My motion to cut this millage rate to 2% was time for us to roll up our sleeves and go do a good stress test on our budget. If we don't stress test our budget when the economy goes down, if the economy goes down, or if things happen, we can't be building up our staff to a level that we're going to have to be giving people pink slips and laying them off. These are not one-time expenditures that were added to the budget. These were obligations that were going to increase the tax burden on our residents forevermore unless you give people pink slips. There are ways to spend money that deal with the current situation, and there's ways to spend money that will impact the future budgets of this city. When you get overstaffed on permanent positions, and we don't have to cut police, we don't have to cut firefighters, we don't have to eliminate the body-worn camera or the CIC monitor areas. We can still provide full service, no cuts in service, no reduction in headcount, of current headcount, and all the other departments that we're looking for. And no, I don't need my own special commission liaison to serve. I'd rather see additional personnel in other areas where we need it as opposed to areas where we really don't need it. My definition of needs are probably a little different than some others, but can this city function and can it provide the essential services to folks? You know, we're not trying to provide a Disney World experience where and I know the mayor is very particular on how the city looks and runs, but yes, there are going to be times, you know, if we only clean up the city, you know, the streets 2 or 3 times a week as opposed to every day. So there's a balance that we're going to have to strike here. And if we can't lower our budget by 1% because we've added this much personnel to our budget, then we've indeed painted a dangerous path forward for our residents in the future, because you're going to have to go do those pink slips. I was so proud of our city during COVID because we didn't lay off a single individual. We didn't use single, once-time monies that, we have gotten into, fortunately, some very robust years of tax revenues from properties. We had a 5-time increase, in 2024. Our average increase over the years between 2016 and 2021 was $4.7 million. In prior years, it was lower. We went 5 times higher than the average in those years. And we did put a lot of it into capital. Gondola building is fully funded. The water tower that you spoke about, Commissioner Fernandez, is fully funded. These projects are fully funded because we did some hard work and belt tightening instead of increasing headcount to the point where it becomes a forever more expense, because these are one-time monies. I understand that. So we have to, do I buy a new car? Can I run with the current one that I have? These are decisions that you have to make. Our revenues this past year are 2 times the amount that we had in 2021, and we're increasing headcount when additional monies come in areas that don't provide those critical services. We've already budgeted for the Teamsters. We have a very good finance director, so we're not going to have to find the money for that in the future because we have budgeted for that. We have reserves for those expenditures. And I want our commission to be a prudent commission. I'm not going to say the word, well, yeah, I will. Frugal. We need to be frugal. We be careful how we spend our money because it's not ours. It's the taxpayers' money. So when you start spending money on items that are not required by the city, okay, instead of focusing on taking care of the ADA remediation that's needed that is our responsibility, that to me is not the frugal spending that we need to be doing. We got to take care of the taxpayers' responsibilities, which is our city streets, our city sidewalks, our parking garages, things of that nature. We need to make sure that accessibility is required. And if it's the contract responsibility of the tenant to pay for something, unless there is some extraordinary circumstance that would warrant us to take care of it, such as, financial difficulty for that tenant, we can always arrange something where we get reimbursed in the future. We can take that on a case-by-case basis. But just because we have the power to do something doesn't mean that it is the prudent thing to do. By prudent, I mean responsible to the taxpayers of the city to maintain the same level of services. And in here, this budget actually expands the service, even with a 1% cut, because we can provide 5 additional firefighters. We are going to open up firehouse number 4. We are going to have 5 additional police officers, CIC monitors, and a body-worn camera specialist. And we can debate the rest of this later on. So I think I answered your question direct. The answer is no. The directors didn't lie. At a 2% and 3% cut, no, the sky is not going to fall at a 1% cut.
I wasn't even done with. I just
I
asked one
understand.
question.
You had a question. I thought I'd give you a direct answer.
Okay. So what you're trying to say is that we're gonna practically the numbers that I gave in my town hall was a 2%, and now you're proposing a 1%. So we're gonna cut half of the services the director said that were going to be cut or jeopardized or compromised. For what? For a $30 savings to the medium household homesteaded resident? I mean, I think that if somebody was in the town hall and you read the room and the responses that they were giving, it was very clear. People live in Coral Gables for their services, and they should not be compromised for $30. Some people even stood up, and some residents even stood up and said, no, I'm saving $18. Well, that $18 with the 1% is going to be $9. So congratulations. If the mayor has been working here for 12 years, he should know that we run a very tight budget, okay? And I remember always him saying, when I first got elected, find me the money. What happened to that? What happened to find me the money? Because you're trying to jeopardize, I would say, the city at this point. How are you not going to compromise city services? How is that a scare tactic? When I brought up numbers in specific with the services that were going to be reduced. As backup, I brought directors to explain explicitly what was going to be reduced. Those are not scare tactics, those are facts.
If you all want to vote 3-2 for that type of reduction, then that's your choice. I'm not willing to do that.
Another thing. I printed out the emails that I got. These emails are 20 emails that say lower the millage. This package right here is 65 emails saying do not lower the millage. For a community to come together and say don't lower my millage, that is very strong. And if you cannot read through the lines, there's really something wrong here. Listen to the people. Listen to what they want. You're here to represent the people. You're here to represent the residents. It's clear, the same emails that I got, all of you got, okay? And I have a compromise. We need to be strategic. I know the mayor, the vice mayor was saying that condos didn't get any relief. Right now, the senator was also saying that condos need some relief, and I agree 100%. I myself live in a condo. So I was thinking that maybe we could be creative and think of a way to maybe give the condos that did not get a garbage reduction some relief by creating a rebate program for condo owners.
Madam City Attorney, is that legal?
So in terms of a reduction in the millage rate for those particular property owners, or some kind of program that is connected to the property taxes, we couldn't do that, but there could be a program, a grant program, as we've done in other instances, where there's perhaps some certain criteria, and if you qualify under that criteria, of course, we can come up with something that is defensible.
Well, if we gave every homeowner a discount for their garbage, I think it would be fair that we gave every condo owner a discount for their not directly for their garbage. We can go ahead and adorn it however you want. But if we gave the regular resident $200, they should be able to apply for that discount or for that grant or for that relief to the city, and we should be able to compensate them. That way, it's an even balance and through the whole city.
Is there any specific amount you're considering? How are you going to handle the other commercial property owners? How is this fair?
Yeah.
If you're otherwise done with your comments, I'll proceed.
Yes, the discount that we gave property owners was what, $200? What was the discount that we gave, Paula? For the garbage, for solid waste?
Yeah. So the early payment, which 72% of our single-family residents take advantage of, it was a $250 reduction.
Okay, so then we should give a $250 reduction to condo owners. And I think that, one, that satisfies what the senator was saying, and two, at some point, Rhonda was being very honest and truthful with, yes, condos were not getting any relief. I just couldn't figure out how to clear that gap. With this idea, I think we'll be providing relief to everyone.
So the condo owners pay their garbage collection through their association, and that is provided through our franchise agreement with our solid waste provider. And so I'm thinking through the conversation as we talk, but I don't know that I don't know what $250 rebate to their garbage would look like, because they would pay as a building, and then the cost of that gets distributed through their association fees. So I don't know how much each owner participates in their collection fee, since it's a building collection. So it's something that we would definitely have to work out and see if 250 is the right number and how that works out. We would not, right, Waste Management would not reduce their fee to the association to accomplish that. It would have to be something that the city provided as a one-time relief to offset their costs. So I'm struggling a little bit with saying that that direct 250 reduction to a household is a direct reduction to a similar reduction to the condo owner.
And the types of properties that are commercial properties are more than just condominiums. We have apartment buildings, we have businesses as well. We have a separate waste management contract that we can work on here in the future to bring that type of relief. But the message was loud and clear from Tallahassee that they wanted to see a millage rate reduction. You know, we have reaped large amounts in the past, and where I see the spending increasing here will increase expenses forevermore in the city. These are not one-time expenditures. There are many ways to take care of services, and there's absolutely zero requirement to have any reduction in services at all with a 1% reduction in the millage rate. So we can choose to ignore the message from Tallahassee and face the same type of reception that we got this past year when we didn't move forward with the millage rate reduction. And the only reason why I didn't do it the year before, okay, was because it was brought up in September. That's why I pushed for it in July, because we need to have a thoughtful discussion and analysis of our budget as to what positions are really needed to be added and which positions can be accomplished as they are being accomplished right now without the millage rate reduction. So, Mr. Urquilla, I'd like to ask you to bring up the presentation that I had for you.
Were you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
So just for context, there's approximately 5,600 condominiums as per the property appraiser report. I'm sorry. Just for context, there's approximately 5,600 condominiums according to the property report that I pulled up quickly. And so 254 would be more than the 1%. It would be about $1.4 million.
Yeah, but that would be a one-time.
Yes.
My worry here is that a millage reduction is year after year after year. We could find the money. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to find the money. And how the mayor says and how the vice mayor says, tighten up even more, which I find hard to do. But this is a one-time expense, and I think it's a very good compromise. How do my colleagues feel about that?
Well, it didn't address apartment buildings.
Vice Mayor, if I
Didn't
may.
address townhomes.
Mayor?
Yes.
I just want to clarify a couple of things. Paula? Don't sit down. When the discussion about the Teamsters and the Teamsters contract, that whatever the Teamsters is negotiated also applies to the general employees, correct? So we're looking at 811 employees that would be affected by that contract.
Yes, the Teamsters contract generally dictates the general employees and also our part-time employees.
Okay. The other question I have is, currently today, how many municipalities in Dade County have reduced their millage rate?
So we have not had an opportunity to survey all of the municipalities, but we did survey the ones that we generally look at: Key Biscayne, Doral, Miami, West Miami, Miami Beach, and several others. So I want to say about 10 or so, Hialeah. And only one of those reduced the millage in their proposed millage, right? What will go on the property tax notice. It was a city of Miami, and two of those increased their millage, Miami Beach and Miami Springs.
And then my last question is, when we talk about the reduction, the 2% reduction in millage rate, we're actually looking at a 2.9% reduction in the budget, correct?
Right, and so one of the slides that I have that I won't show now, but the direction that we were, so property tax revenue funds two areas. It funds our general fund operating budget, and it funds, and we put funding towards capital, right? So we contribute towards capital each year. And so when we look at the general fund operating budget, is actually only 192 million, well, not only, but it's 192 million of our $277 million budget. When we remove police and fire from that equation, we also have to remove building, because building has its own revenue and it's restricted, as well as the city clerk's passport office. So when we remove those four areas, we're actually looking at 88 million of our budget that we would look to that reduction. So the 2.6 million is approximately 3%, 2.9% of that 88 million. And obviously a 1% would be about 1.5%.
So the reduction, the 2.9%, doesn't come out of the $277 million city budget. It only comes out of our general operating fund of $88 million.
Exactly, unless we were to look at capital and then
Right.
but we.
And any surplus, if any, at the end of the year, we roll it back for the following year to capital improvement
Yes.
and so on.
Yes, to the, to some of what the vice mayor said, right? So we've been prudent in many years in putting those increases in revenue to capital, and we've also been prudent in taking any surpluses at the end of the year and setting them aside to make sure that we continue funding capital.
Well, I want to thank you and Diana and your staff, and actually all the directors and city employees for two reasons. Number one, it's a very difficult job that you all do. These are tough decisions that the commission has to make. We appreciate the work that you all do, and I thank you for your service.
If I may, oh, sorry.
I thank you as well. Revenue-wise, so we don't just have property tax, correct?
Yes, we also have revenues for fees and other revenues that we get from the state. I will say that this year, one of the things that we wait on in the summer is our state revenue increases, and so far, we've only gotten two of them, and they have been modest increases of about $200,000, just between revenue sharing from the state and the half cent. And so they've also, that increase that we've been seeing the last couple of years has also been going down.
So, and then we also have our parking fees, correct?
Right, we also have our parking fees, which covers the parking operations, and also covers parking capital, and assists with our trolley division, which handles transportation as well, yes.
Right, and we also have pending grant applications into the state and federal government to cover some of the capital needs that we have.
We do have applications in. We're not guaranteed to receive those applications, and and those are actually for not necessarily for projects that we have contemplated, but projects that we would construct if we receive those funds.
Right, they're in our capital improvement plan, and if the grants are awarded, that would help fill some of the capital needs in the future.
So specifically, the projects that we have grants out for are projects that will likely not be completed if we don't receive the grant funds because we haven't budgeted for those projects.
Yes, but if they're awarded, just like if, we had the TDR sale, and because of the TDR sale, we were able to take care of the needs of our historical buildings in ways that we weren't able to before. And that was a substantial amount of money. How much was that?
2.6, the TDR, 2.6?
What was the question, the TDRs?
Just over $2 million that we received in TDRs.
We can review that.
We received 2.6. We've received over $2 million, and we, yes. And so, yes, so that is what the city works very hard for, is to find those one-time monies, but those are one-time monies that do allow us to do things that we may not be able to do in our current budget. So all of those things we're able to supplement, not replace in many cases, funding that we did not already have allocated.
Right, right. And just as an example, the museum itself, we put it in, currently for capital needs, about $500,000, and we've also budgeted out the remainder of those TDR funds to cover some future building needs.
Yes, so the
Maintenance, I
the
should
TDR
say.
funds given to the museum will allow for work to be done that otherwise we did not have a funding for.
Okay, all right.
If I may, since you're there, and first off, I want to thank all the department directors and assistant and deputy directors for letting the commission and the residents know not only how you all serve our community, but the behind-the-scenes look as to the needs of each of your departments so that you can better serve our community. Earlier was a mention, well, first off, what in the dollar amount is the garbage fee cut how is that going to impact in terms of dollar amount the city? Because that's, I think, a couple $1 million, if I'm not mistaken.
The cut that we provided or the
Yes.
cut that we're trying, okay. So the reduction in the solid waste fee essentially, and you can see it very clearly in capital actually, reduced the available funds that we had for this budget process by $3.6 million. And so that cut was prior to knowing our property values. And so prior to that, we were not able to fund many things in our capital, and we were not able to fund new need items. And so just for context, right, new needs are not necessarily things that the departments would like. They're in response to community input, like additional cleaning services in the restrooms of many facilities that community recreations manages. And so the reduction of that $3.6 million did not allow us to fund some of those items and did not allow us to fully fund, if you recall, the matrices in the capital budget, which are like the IT network replacement, the police equipment replacement, some of the fire equipment replacement, community recreation equipment replacement, and then the increased values, the revenue that we now anticipate for the property values allowed us then to fully fund those matrices.
So we're here today already with a $3.6 million depletion, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes.
Then the other thing that was mentioned was that we should budget for years going forward, but that's what you already do. You budget, you forecast for multiple years. I know we have projects that are multi-phase. So could you explain to those folks listening that what was suggested we do, we already do? We budget and we plan for future years. It's not just here and now, because we have projects that need to take multiple years, and you budget for that. Could you talk a little about that?
Yes, certainly. And so, as you know, in our budget process, we do look at each department and look through the spending, the actuals for prior years and the budget requests that each department puts in. And so as we're evaluating what we can add to the budget, right? So our department directors are instructed to come in with the same budget. They don't come in with an increased budget from the offset. They come in with the base budget. They're supposed to find deficiencies within the department to be able to cover any needs that they have. And then subsequently, they ask for new needs, so new funding requests in two manners. One manner is through their operating budget request and through their capital request. And so as we consider those each year and how much we fund, we consider what we anticipate our revenue will be in future years. And as I started to explain earlier in the presentation, we typically have relied on a 3 to 5% and more like a 3 to 4% increase in property values and other revenues, depending on trend that we're seeing when we start forecasting. Not until we get our preliminary property values and any one-time revenues do we start to then decide what we can add to that budget Obviously, recurring revenue is reliable, right? So we know that if we now have an 8% increase in revenue, that increase doesn't go away. We may not see another increase in the future. So we are very prudent about what we add to the operating budget, and anything else we give to capital, because capital can very easily be taken back, because most of them are one-time projects. While there is the desire for us to meet the needs of the community and finish projects, we also try to maintain our budget something that's sustainable. And so that's been the practice so far.
Speaking to a couple department directors, I know for a fact that some departments, because in 2010 it was basically, I hate to use the word, but a bloodbath, layoffs, departments were depleted, decisions were made that I guess were needed under the circumstances, and some of those departments still haven't recovered from their prior year numbers in terms of staffing. So they're not living the high life. They're still recovering and trying to play catch up. I want the community to know that. The other thing also, talk about the town hall meeting that Commissioner Castro hosted. In my opinion, the reason why we discussed a 2% cut and no cut, for example, was because the last time we got together as a commission, there were two motions, 2% cut, it failed 2-3, and maintaining it as is, and that was a 3-2, it failed, because that's what the community heard, that's what we voted on. So I have no issue with that scenario being 2%. The other thing is, comment was made that hires aren't needed. Who are we sitting up here on Mount Olympus to say to our department directors and the folks that are picking up the garbage, the folks that are with the kids and seniors, police and fire, that hires are not needed? These are the folks on the ground 24/7. They're the ones who respond to the community, to the residents. They're the ones who do their best, and their team, they bust their butts trying to make sure we have the best city and the best services. Who are we to say hires are not needed? They're the ones who tell us, because they're there in the trenches. We're not in the trenches. And one final thing. I keep on hearing Tallahassee mandate. Well, I went to Tallahassee 2 or 3 times this last session. And quite honestly, I didn't hear that. And based on what I heard from other cities, maybe one heard it, but the rest of the cities didn't get the memo. And according to what I understand, neither did the county. So, and, you know, I respect Senator, I respect everyone in Tallahassee. They do a great job. They work hard. But quite honestly, we also, you know, the mandate's coming from our residents, and they're closest to the epicenter of our community. So I really, you know, I understand folks want to cut taxes. It's the thing to do. It's all over the country. It's you know, it's part of our political landscape, but our residents have made it loud and clear. Protect our services. Protect our services. And I think they said don't touch the millage rate. And again, September is when we're actually going to vote on the millage rate. This is just setting the ceiling. So the fact that we've gotten to this point, I don't know why it had to be rushed. We have till September to look at things appropriately and make the right decisions.
I want to make sure, I'm sorry, Vice Mayor.
So I want to make sure that the record is very, very clear here. Making a motion for a 2% reduction so that we can go back and do the hard work of looking at what the impact of various levels of reduction will, so we can make an intelligent decision, is not a mandate that there be a 2% reduction. I've done many cases involving crunching the numbers, and I don't prefer to wait till the midnight hour to require our staff to do the type of detailed work that they've done over the past several weeks to provide us accurate information on what those cuts would have an impact. Perhaps 2% would not require not filling any particular positions. Maybe the right number is higher. Maybe the right number is lower. But 1% does not require us to remove any positions. 1% does not require us to reduce any services. But the current list of needs, and unfortunately we use the word needs in our budgeting, and it's misleading. There's wants, and there's needs, and that's what's necessary, and there's things that we can do more economically if we do so in a prudent manner. If we're going to add a permanent position, you are increasing the taxes, plain and simple. You are increasing the taxes for residents forevermore when you add positions. And when additional money showed up after June 1st, we didn't choose to reduce taxes. We decided to spend more. And we didn't spend more in a way that was going to reduce expenses. We've spent in a way that was going to forevermore be a requirement, unless you're going to start laying off employees, to make sure that our budget makes the same mistake that occurred back when employees had to be laid off, I think it was 2010, when the staffing grew too large. You must be careful in growing staff too large. I understand that there was even a proposal by someone here to add more departments, which would add more headcount, which would increase the demands on our budget even more, and decrease the services that were available for people, because instead of adding more Indians, we'd be adding more chiefs. So I'm going to continue now with my presentation, Commissioner Menendez, because you've had a couple of opportunities at least to speak, and I'll ask the city clerk to bring up my presentation so that we can have a more cohesive discussion on actually what the numbers are. So, Mr. Urquilla, when you're ready. So, you enlarge that a little bit because some of us don't have the young eyes that we used to. So, and you can scroll up a little bit to get rid of that white space at the top. So our appropriations that we got returned were larger than a 1% reduction in our millage rate. There were twice as much in 2023, 3 times as much in 2022, 2023. So if you think that Tallahassee is not listening, you need to check again. Because if we continue to not do prudent financial decisions in our city, they will look at that and say, why are you coming up here and asking for money when you could have done better with the budget that you had?
I'm sorry, Vice Mayor, that's a misrepresentation of what happened. South Miami had 4 projects, and all 4 got vetoed by the governor. And they're moving a lot of the water projects into a grant program. And that was the message from Tallahassee. That's why a great many of the projects that we had, just like South Miami, were vetoed by the governor, though they passed legislation. They didn't look, say, oh, you did this, you did that. It was as a whole. Certain types of projects are now, they're creating a grant program to fund those types of projects. That's what happened. I mean,
there were additional messages that were received from other electeds. Tallahassee, you weren't apparently within earshot of those, just as you weren't within earshot of the person that walked by my house as I got home on Wednesday night and made a comment that I will not repeat regarding the quality of the presentation on Wednesday. If you want to have a comprehensive discussion on a budget, then you need to have a comprehensive discussion on a budget and not put in the worst case scenario. If there is a reduction in your millage, all this will stop. All these employees will not be able to be maintained. And if we're going to maintain services, we got to look at what it costs to maintain those services. And we have room for enhancements as well, and in this budget with a 1% reduction. So $5.98 million in 2022 and 2023 is far in excess of this 1% reduction, which we would approximate at somewhere at 1.97, or we'll just round it up to 1.3. That's what we have a motion on the table for now. And Mr. Urquía, I'd ask you to go to page 2.
Vice Mayor, if I may?
Yes,
I'm about to
absolutely.
leave. I was on my vacation. I wanted to put something on the record. Number one, with regards to that grant program, you're absolutely right. They took all of those water projects and they put them in a grant, and the governor is in charge, all right? And with regards to what we confront as representatives in Miami-Dade, it's difficult. I just came in 4 years ago, and I will tell you that it is difficult at times to try to justify the spending as a whole in Miami-Dade County, which really, pardon my language, pisses me off because we are the economic engine of Florida. But when I tell you that Calatayud, Avila, and Senator Ana Maria, Senator Pizzo at the time, Chevron Jones, we have to fight to nickel and dime and pull money out of Tallahassee because as most of you know, not the public, a lot of the funds get pulled north. So when I tell you that we've been doing a lot of work with regards to how we can bring money to the water projects, I mean, I think that at a given moment, more funds could be pulled down because of the there was some issue with the BRAPs and just water, well, just the logistics on that as a whole. But when I tell you that we have to fight for funds from Miami-Dade, we do. We came into a great moment when I came into the Senate, right after COVID, with all of the federal funding that came down and everyone moving to Florida. We're now 23 million here in Florida. That helps a lot, but that's also difficult at times. The funds were there, but it is drying up. And I say, Commissioner Mendez, with all due respect, when I tell you that we do have to fight for the funds because there is a stigma with regards to how the money is spent in Miami-Dade.
And Senator, if I may, and thank you
Yes,
for
yes.
coming up here and clarifying even further a lot of the statements. And when I was with the city of Miami, I did intergovernmental affairs. I know how difficult that is. And sometimes it's at the last minute, and sometimes at the last minute, the money's there and it's not there. So I know the battle that you all do. And not only in legislation, but other aspects of our community. I've been very involved in sports, in high school sports for years. Tallahassee was the power I mean, we provide all the revenue, and yet all the power is in Tallahassee.
Goes north. No.
And no matter how hard,
Orlando.
and the Dade delegation for decades has been a powerhouse, but sometimes you're going against the 600-pound gorilla. And no matter how hard you all work and how hard you try, sometimes it doesn't happen. So, and I respect the work that you all do because I know how difficult it is. But the thing is, we work together as a team and do our best, not only for our city, but I believe that all cities should work together and with all of you because it's a South Florida thing. It's a Miami-Dade thing. We're in it together.
Agreed. Anyway, with that said, I appreciate what all of you are trying to do here today. They are difficult times, but once again, the city beautiful is the city beautiful for a reason, and I get what you're trying to do. I speak for Senator Calatayud and myself. We are here for you and for the Representative Demi Buscara Cabrera, which helps us make those heavy lifts on the House side. I am here to help and looking forward to great outcomes on this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I appreciate how hard you fight for it, and, I've been up there and heard the discussions when, you have to justify, why are you asking for this, for these folks when they spend money like that?
Yeah.
And that's some of the discussion. We'll continue on, and thank you so much for being
And
here
Commissioner
today.
Castro, I'd love to sit with you with regards to the condo situation.
Absolutely.
There's a huge problem with that, and we need to work through it. Anyway, my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
So I'm going to ask City Clerk to go to page 3 of the presentation. And continue to scroll up so we can see the article. And I failed to pass out copies here for you all. You can pass them down the line. October 2nd, 2022, a period of time when our city was considering a budget much smaller than the one that we have today, without the types of increases that we had in the past. We only had a $3.6 million increase in property tax revenues that year over 2022. And now Commissioner Fernandez wrote a very pointed article, which commentary on that as well agreed that it was time for this city to trim its millage rate. And it was very direct. Other municipalities offer tax relief to residents. Taxes continue to go up because our property values continue to go up, so the revenues continue to go up because of the increase in property values. Creation of new positions was one of those as well that was brought up as for an additional reason. There was a discussion about perennial vacancies. You know, we do create positions sometimes, you know, and the adage could be summarized as this: if we have positions that we haven't filled for 10 years, 5 years, perhaps we really don't need them because we're functioning just fine without them. And then there was some more discussion about money movement without commissioner resident knowledge, oversight, and meeting details. That was a position back in 2022. I don't think the facts have changed at all here. In fact, it's improved. It's more compelling that with property values now where they're at, and with the Save Our Homes, they're going to continue to go up that minimum amount, and as well as for commercial properties, which have a 10% increase at least every single year in values because of that. You know, they're not going to go over 10%, but there is going to be a 10% increase, that we have opportunities to continue to have growth. But when we're reaching levels that are far in excess of the levels that we're at in 2022 and 2023, it's telling that if the opinion then was that we should decrease the millage rate, it screams now that we should, when our revenues are more than 5 times or more than 2 times, if you look at 2024 and 2025 projected revenues, than we had back at that time. It was much easier for folks to buy a home at the time. My taxes will continue to go up despite the fact that my assessed value is lower, because Save Our Homes guarantees that I'll have those increases in the future, because I've enjoyed not having a higher assessed value. So, well, let's get to the last page, page 6. This page corresponds with many of the details that really weren't examined during the presentation on Wednesday. We had a spreadsheet that was provided to us that had about 12 lines of positions to be added to our city budget. Again, I don't want to go back to 2010 when we grew staffing so high that someone had to come in and say, listen, you know, this position's really not necessary, that position's not necessary. So, City Manager's Office wants to add a fourth, as Commissioner Fernandez said, a fourth position, so that each one of the commission members has their very own liaison to assist with functions within the city. I know how I use liaisons for scheduling, social media. I draft my own stuff. They proofread it if necessary, if I ask them to, as far as that concerned. And I know, Commissioner Fernandez, you have immense social media skills that I could only dream of having. So you don't have the same needs that I do in that regard. You can pump out social media in your sleep, I think,
Probably.
where it takes me days to even, put it together. So,
Which reminds me, we haven't taken a commission selfie in a while.
huh?
We haven't taken a commission selfie in a while.
When the mayor
No,
comes
no,
back.
we hadn't. We hadn't. And people might think that with all of us in gray,
Yes, it was
that
coordinated.
this was a sunshine violation, but, so you need a little levity there sometimes. So I played with the numbers, okay, to see if we could arrive closer to the 1% number. And this is by no means a directive to staff, but it's an analysis to see the difference between what we need and what can be outsourced and what can be dealt with in another way. The fourth position, liaison, I put the money back in because we don't need it. Code enforcement officer, I put in hire a field supervisor, which would, put that cost at $78,458. You'll correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not a CPA. I've taken a few accounting classes, et cetera, and dealt with numbers, but I will respectfully be corrected. The converting two part-time procurement specialists to one already was noted as a savings. I just put it in there. No, I'm not saying that that is not a good idea. I just wanted to make sure that that was noted. The sign shop, my time with staff, I asked the simple question that, did we compare outsourced costs as opposed to putting on a full-time employee or even a part-time employee, and that wasn't done because there just wasn't enough time. And those are exercises that need to be done. That was a position that decades ago that prior commissions had addressed, and a determination was made then, and I think that still holds now, that having somebody in there to address those things on a ongoing basis as an employee, as opposed to looking at other ways to address it like we are right now, is the prudent thing to do. Now, we're not going to have Disney World, and I know that a certain member of our commission who's not here today would prefer that we had more of a Disney World aspect, but that comes at a tremendous cost to our residents, and I don't think they expect that every sticker be off every sign, within 24 hours or in a certain period of time. I don't think that they want to pay an additional $1.2 or $1.3 million to have that high level of service. Public Works. Let's see, that actually was 3 lines there that I did. Right-of-way inspector, we really need to examine, is that really necessary? We haven't had the position before. All these positions, bubbled to the top when the additional money came into our budget. Parking enforcement specialists, 2 part-time to 2 full-time, comes with a tremendous cost, because when you have a full-time employee, in with that comes additional expenses. Is it really that much benefit to us to have them full-time versus part-time? I would have loathed for some of these little part-time jobs when I was in college, especially law school, because it's a lot less stressful than having to deal with, the type of work that I did do, because I was clerking at 3 different law firms at the same time in order to pay my bills. Additional contractor for street monument painting. I haven't gotten a lot of emails about those. It's, you're talking a smattering, maybe 1 or 2 a year. Downtown holiday decorations, that used to be taken care of by the bid. We can be creative in finding funding from, the business owners for that. Is it a mission-critical need, like police and fire? Is it necessary like we have for IT that supports everybody else? Are they the auto and truck mechanics that we need, those high-level positions that can't be filled in by part-timers? These are some of the things you need to think about when we're dealing with the taxpayers' funds. The holiday park decorations. been a while since I've had little kids. My glancing at these park decorations are that they're not in horrible shape. I think we can, we can live with them for a few more years. We can take it, repair, paint them. I wish they were around when my kids were growing up in a condition that these are right now, because they were horrible back then. But I do think we can take a long, hard look at that, just like, other things that can wait a year or two, and we can fit them in our budget on a more fiscally sound basis. The 4th of July laser light and drone show, I'd love to have it. Okay, I would. Is it mission critical? No. Is there some vendor that might want to donate some money and fund this? Possibly. I'll ask people. But do I want to raise people's taxes to essentially have a laser light drone show? No, I don't want to do that. Cultural program increase, that's a painful one. But I do think looking at the community foundation and how they were able to multiply dollars this past time, I do think we can work with the community and get a lot more for our cultural arts by working with the community foundation. I know the Rotary Club put in money and there was a matching dollar to it. So they got twice the bang for their buck on those dollars. So there's a lot of people that are very, passionate about cultural arts in our community, and I think that they will help step up to the plate in this event. Maybe we can shave the numbers around and still increase the funding for cultural arts. It's a real important section, but, working yesterday and the day before on these numbers is the best I could work with. I didn't go through every line of our budget. So, Public Works.
Vice Mayor, if I have a question on one of the lines, the holiday part, could you go over that part again? I'm sorry.
That's the Christmas, that's children's.
Right, it's 50, take 50,000 from there.
That was the additional funding that was being put in there.
Because I remember at the town
For
hall
new-
meeting, Fred explained that I think their contract was expired and they were going to,
They could extend for one more year if necessary, but it won't give more than 1 year.
We have a contract with them, and the first part of it has been expired, but we've gone back with them and working on keeping the exact same park with a couple of small additions and keeping the same price. And so we did that for this upcoming year. We can continue to do that, as I stated in the past. My only concern is based on the past, eventually the park deteriorates. And sometimes the drop-off is dramatic from one year to the next. As the Vice Mayor said, yes, we got through it last year, and I think this year will be okay. I just think this is something we have to look at year to year as we go from budget to budget, because from a historical perspective, when it happened last time, it was the commission that came to me and said, you need to do something new, which we did. And that was 6-7 years ago.
No, and I realize, and I appreciate
Yeah.
you. I do think, because when I walked around the park, and I walk quite often because I'm only 3 blocks away from here, I didn't see anything falling apart. I didn't see anything, visibly deteriorated. No,
But-
I didn't walk in there with my dogs.
Yeah.
So I wasn't, I don't
No,
know if
and-
Commissioner Menendez rode the slide or something like that, but,
done that a few times at night.
yeah, I know the zip line you did, but.
I go to the park often with my son, and I have to say, it has deteriorated a lot.
So, again, staff,
I did receive complaints from residents this year about the park, which I hadn't received before, just because they thought, this is Coral Gables, we can do better than this. And the
Right.
same with the decorations on Miracle Mile. I received a ton of complaints on the decoration of Miracle Mile, and I even had to apologize to our economic development staff because, they had to come up with a last-minute solution. But residents have a certain expectation.
and I understand that, and the businesses used to contribute to a fund, and that's how it was funded before. So, we need to have that conversation with the businesses, that the reality is they used to pay for it before, and, it's time that they step up to the plate. We have supplemented that budget in significant ways. And, for us, the taxpayers, all taxpayers, to have to pay for something that the businesses used to pay for before, but unfortunately the bid dissolved for the reasons we all know, and we, in an emergency basis, stepped into the plate. It's time for them to step up and say, hey, listen, this is really good for our businesses. This is our street here. This is not the sidewalk in front of everybody's resident, but something that they need to put in there if they want to continue to attract individuals to shop in front of their stores. And that's typically how, businesses work together to enhance, foot traffic on the city. So I'll continue down with some of the other items. The 1/2 janitorial, and Fred, that references the dollar amount that you had asked for additional cleaning. Instead of me taking the entire amount out, I, for hypothetical purposes here, put in half the janitorial services in there. The menorah event, again, it's wonderful. I'd love to do it, but, I think some folks will help enhance it. It was to make it more of an event. It's not going to decrease services that we previously provided, but to do something more. And I think the community can come together and make it more of an enhanced event for folks to enjoy. Then I reached a subtotal. I was up to $1,027,399, and throughout some other proposals that staff can think about. And I'm going to ask for us to take a break so staff can have an opportunity to digest these numbers.
Can I do a correction with your numbers? The first one, that's 64,000, that one was not funded in our budget. It's not one of the positions, if you see.
I'm sure staff can respond to this. This is a spreadsheet that staff provided to me.
Okay, well.
Okay, I worked off that.
Okay, well then.
Staff can do the explanation.
I didn't mean to offend you in any way or disrespect.
But no,
But
I mean,
the reality is that $64,000, that wasn't originally funded.
Okay, so I was given a sheet for positions added for the 24 and 25 budget estimate, 23 full-time and 2 part-time positions. These figures came from staff, not from me.
Okay, staff, can
Okay,
you go ahead and correct that, please?
when we take a break, staff will have a time to digest this entire list, and we will have opportunities to have individual discussions with staff before we move on.
So I didn't hear the specific question. Can
Okay, so we're going to take a break
Okay,
when I finish.
okay.
We'll break.
So,
We need to move this meeting. I don't think we need to take a break.
are you in a rush?
No, we have staff here, we have residents that are watching.
I know, but
And-
I want to make an intelligent decision, not a rush decision.
You're making this a rush decision
No,
by
I'm
doing
not.
this today instead of in September.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you
No,
are.
I'm not. No, I'm not. What I did in July was make sure that we could have an intelligent discussion by being able to have a drilled down analysis of this. If I had waited till September like you suggested, we wouldn't be able to have gone through these positions in the manner that we did to be able to determine whether or not outsourcing is better on a position as opposed to putting in a full-time position with the health insurance, with the additional burden on our pension plan, and all the costs that go into full-time positions. This will limit our ability to be able to negotiate with the Teamsters. This will limit our ability to be able to do things in the future because you're now put in a permanent position forevermore. It's very, very hard to peel those permanent positions down. So, Commissioner Castro, when you're ready to proceed, let me know, and I'll finish this section, and then we'll take our break.
Is this something that the bid could help fund?
There is no bid.
Oh, that's right. We got rid of the bid.
Right, we'll take a break, and we can have some comprehensive discussions so that we can make intelligent decisions before we take a vote.
But before we take a break, I have something to say that Paula did some clarification here. The $64,918 position is already filled. Are you trying to tell me that we should fire her?
We will take a break and we'll have a comprehensive discussion on positions beyond this. This is a sheet that staff provided me. You know, this is the problem when you make decisions to hire before the budget, before the millage rate is set, before the budget is determined. So I would respectfully request the city manager to keep that in mind for the future. Okay? So, at the bottom,
I'm sorry, Vice Mayor, to interrupt you. Any decisions that I make to hire someone, I always check with our budget folks, the folks that are the experts, to make sure that we have the funds to absorb that position. Since I've been here, I've hired maybe 2, 3 people, the new assistant city manager. I'm not one of going and hiring a whole bunch of people. I just want to correct the record.
no, I'm just talking about positions being, added to.
Well,
and this was
I'll let you finish
this is on the
Yes,
spreadsheet
ma'am.
of positions added
Okay.
for the 24-25 budget
I
estimate.
understand.
So I know that we have a number of positions that we hold money so that when we fill that position, we have the money to pay them with. This is just dealing with added positions. So you can understand that when I receive a spreadsheet that talks about added positions for the 24-25 budget estimate, we're talking about the budget that begins after October 1st, not now. Okay? So at this time, and I can email this to you, I'll give you this, and let's have our individual discussions with staff, and that gives staff an opportunity to digest this proposal and see if we can bridge the gap here.
So I have a few comments I would like to make. Just a few corrections. I think the senator phrased it perfectly. Coral Gables is the city beautiful, and the city beautiful has to remain the city beautiful. You talk about how the mayor wants this to be Disney World. I agree with the mayor, and I think the emails that we have been receiving from residents and the comments that we received, I went to a restaurant last night, I had 3 people come up to the table last night saying, you'd be crazy to lower the millage rate, because we don't want any changes to the services we're getting. And if you do have any surplus money, apply it to the unfunded liability. Those are the comments that I've been getting. I agree 100% with the mayor. We are the shining city in Miami-Dade County. We are the city everybody wants to move to. Where do they move to from New York? From Virginia, from California, they moved to Coral Gables. That's why Coral Gables was the highest valued zip code this past year. It's not because we're offering a millage rate cut just to say we gave a millage rate cut, which is going to go to, yes, the out-of-town developers who own Lifetime Building and who own the plaza. That's where most of the money is going to go. And the residents who most need it, we have targeted those. And you sat there, you and I had a lengthy conversation here on this dais about the garbage fees. And we worked together. And at the time you said that was the way we could send Tallahassee a message that we are serious about providing relief to our residents. I think Commissioner Castro's idea of the cuts to waste management fees or a way to provide a rebate to those folks, it's actually something I talked to Hermes about on Tuesday night, about finding a way to maybe reduce our franchise fees or find a way that we can provide that relief to the condo owners who are the ones that have not been affected. You talked about Miracle Mile holiday decorations. You say the businesses are not paying for it, but technically by reducing the garbage fee, the businesses are now subsidizing the garbage for our residents. So this is a way to balance out the playing field for those businesses who benefit from our holiday park, from our menorah lighting, from our decorations on Miracle Mile. This is what attracts people to Coral Gables. We have always been the city where people want to come to enjoy the outdoors, to enjoy our restaurants, to enjoy our museum, our theater. We have plenty of activities going on. Right across the street, we have Sanctuary of the Arts, which has become one of the most successful cultural venues in all of South Florida. And where are those people going? They're going to Miracle Mile. They're frequenting our businesses here in Coral Gables. But we can't start reducing on our services. You know, we talk about lowering the millage rate. Miami-Dade County's millage rate reduction last year was minimal. And they're still getting a larger percentage of the taxes that we pay as residents than the city does. Yet the city is providing the services for residents. So what's Miami-Dade County doing in order to counter their reduction from last year? Well, they're raising their garbage fee because now they've realized their millage rate cut from last year is not sustainable this year. They're going to have changes to the MOU with police departments throughout Miami-Dade County, where any services provided by Miami-Dade County Police Department to municipalities, now they're going to start billing for them. So this is going to be an extra cost to the municipalities. And this is the way that they can say, hey, we cut the millage rate, but now they have to find a way to subsidize the money. And as far as Tallahassee, I think Senator Garcia said it best. It is a battle, but lowering the millage rate isn't going to change the governor's mind on the changes he made to the grant programs. That was a decision he made. Cultural grants. Our city was one of the cities that suffered the most in our cultural grants. Sanctuary of the Arts, Coral Gables Museum, Actors Playhouse, and numerous other production places in our city, Gables Cinema, all lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in funding. And they're all trying to figure out how to find a path forward. The Coral Gables Museum could very well be before us on August 27th, trying to find a way for the city to give them money because they can't stay afloat. They can't pay their monthly bills. These are serious problems that we have. And again, they're big question marks that we have. Our Teamsters contract. President of the Teamsters is here today. And, you know, what I heard you say is we know what that's going to cost us. That's impossible because that contract is still in negotiations. So we don't know what that contract is going to cost us. And as staff told us, 811 employees are impacted by that contract. So we don't know the dollar amount. I think you've presented a great option. I'm not ready to say what that option is going to be until September. You're basically tying your hands and saying, I'm going to jump off the cliff and hope that, you know, some wind catches me and I'm going to land in the ocean. That's not reality. We can't be a kamikaze commission. We have to make smart decisions. And you talked about the 2% that was presented at the town hall. That was what you and Mayor Lago said here. The instruction you gave to staff was come up with an option for 2%. So that's what was presented to residents, because that's what. Let me finish.
No.
I respected your time and I let you finish.
Okay.
So
I will correct the record when you're done.
2% was what was asked of staff, and Paul, you're here. Wasn't that what was asked for a 2%?
There was not a definitive vote. There was an impasse. We've asked the staff to go back and look at options for reducing the millage rate. We all asked for various options, from 0 to 3% was the numbers that I saw, the numbers that were presented to me individually, and I know that the city manager dutifully had discussions with each and every one of us on all of those options. If there was not a definitive vote on something, there was no direction specifically to do that cut. We've added 12 positions, 12 that were not in the budget before. Those 12 positions, and I'm not talking about police, I'm not talking about IT, I'm not talking about the mechanics, I'm not talking about all the essential positions that we clearly need in this city, and I mean need, okay? And I did take the time to speak to each and every one of the directors. I did take time to speak to the chief, and I still, Chief, feel that having somebody sit for 8 hours in front of a monitor is not as effective as having somebody that doesn't have to sit there and stare at it for so many hours, because you just can't maintain the same level of alertness. You know, the part-time workers that we use for solid waste fill the gaps in between. If we're having problems with heat exhaustion, you know, perhaps part-time is easier because it's not as stressful for someone to do. But when you're ballooning the budget, when you're ballooning this budget by 12 additional positions over and above those that are needed to maintain the current level of service and enhance the level of service, the problem lies within how you're spending the money that has driven this budget up to this level. This is an effort to bring it back into where it should be. These were the decisions you made and the decisions that you gave to staff to increase positions. They weren't mine, okay? We need to trim this back. If we had put this money prudently away to pay down debt, okay, not spent money in ways that we're not required to spend, I wouldn't be so adamant about this right now. But that's not the direction that this commission has taken, not the majority on this commission. The menorah event will still happen. The menorah will still be lit. The same level of services will still be maintained. The doom and gloom that was presented was a false reality. When I evaluate the opinion of anybody, I have to look at the information that they based it upon. And if the information that they based it upon was not accurate, because that is not what we're discussing here today. I am not discussing a 2% reduction. I'm not discussing a 3% reduction, because it's pretty clear that it would require reductions in services.
Vice Mayor,
I
if I
won't
may.
entertain that.
Vice Mayor, if I may, respectfully, the data that we provided to all the commissioners is accurate information. The numbers are accurate. I have
This is it.
total confidence in my staff that they provided the folks that make the decision the correct information. If it's the will of the commission to direct me not to hire certain positions, clearly we will follow those directions. But my recollection of what was asked, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because at my age I'm starting to forget things, that there was never a vote. It was just a suggestion, just like it was a suggestion not to touch police and fire. But we respected that, and we did that. But to your point is, it was a 2% to look at a 2% reduction. That is my recollection, but I could be wrong. I'll have to refer to the city clerk to remind me, because again,
So let me clarify, because I think you misunderstood.
Okay.
Okay, I was referring to the presentation that was done at Commissioner Castro's town hall. I was referring to the fact that the same information that was presented to each and every one of us to make an intelligent decision is not the same information that was presented at the town hall. The information that was presented at the town hall was 2 to 3 times
Inaccurate.
2 to 3 times the amount of reduction. We did not examine a 1% cut, and I brought that up with you at the town hall.
What was presented in the town hall was the exact calculations of the 2% reduction, and they're right here, if you want to go ahead and zoom in. Exact
And to that
numbers.
issue,
The exact calculation, yes, my point exactly, of a 2% reduction. We are not discussing a 2% reduction
I'm not a
here today.
psychic to know that you were going to come up here and say a 1%. I'm not a psychic. I'm sorry. I did not foresee this coming.
And Madam
What I
Vice Mayor, you
presented-
voted, and the mayor, for 2%. That was the recommendation you gave, and then the mayor sat here and said, I want to see numbers for a 2% cut. Right here, he was sitting, he said that, and you agreed. So if the
Sir.
1% came to mind after the fact, when residents started reaching out to you and saying this was a bad idea, that's fine. We can accept that.
So-
But going out and saying that your colleagues are basically putting out false information and calling each one of these directors liars, I'm sorry, that's unacceptable.
I said they
I
weren't
think I
lying.
misunderstood what the Vice
Yeah,
Mayor was saying.
you are misrepresenting facts.
No, you are.
Clearly, because I didn't say the directors were liars. I said they were accurate, because they were asked questions on a 2% and 3% reduction. I asked staff for all scenarios, not just a solitary scenario. We've had weeks of discussions. We've had opportunities, in addition to that, to meet with every single one of these directors and ask questions. I've had follow-up calls with directors and the finance director discussing each and every one of these things to see where we can save taxpayers money, okay? That's incumbent upon us to examine all options. If the only options that are laid out for the residents are not the same options that were presented for us, that's when it becomes a distortion of information. That's when residents don't know that there are other options other than 2% and 3%.
Well, tell me where they are, because I
Madam Chair,
never
if I may.
received, this is what I received. Did you receive something different?
I have,
This is what I worked on. Tell me in detail what
Madam Vice Mayor.
1%, how the city worked on it. They didn't. This is what they provided us with. These are the facts, these are the numbers, and this is what I worked with. So please, please, don't try to discredit my work in the town hall.
And
Okay, page three, page
recovering
three.
my time, I was speaking and you interrupted me. Let me finish my comments.
okay, let's just.
That's all I'm gonna ask for. So-
Page 3 of the presentation has each and every single one of these options.
Yes, at your
Madam Vice
request.
Chair, can you hear me?
Okay, this
your
was the
request.
options presented with the reductions that were going to be done to every department in detail. And if you go ahead and you look at the total reduction is 2.595. You know what that means? That means it's a 2%.
Right.
Okay? It's very clear.
Madam Vice
So
Mayor.
going back to my comments, you brought up a Gables Insider article from 2022.
Correct.
We were a different financial situation in 2022. We did not have a Teamsters contract that was pending. Insurance rates had not gone up yet because we hadn't had the hurricane on the west coast of Florida. We also thought, the commission thought at the time, there was $10 million in the bank for City Hall renovations, only to find out later it wasn't there because it had been used in the 427 building. I mean, there are a lot of facts that have changed since that article was written. And today, we're not in the same position. There was also discussion about the 2020 census and how our population had dropped. Since that 2020 census, Lifetime Building opened up with all of its apartment buildings, apartment units. The Plaza has opened up and started bringing people in. There are numerous development projects that have been completed. So our population, even though in the 2020 census was low, probably has gone up by at least 3,000 or 4,000 people. And as you go vertical, these demands on city staff also go up. How many park spaces have we renovated and opened up over the last few years? We opened up a new dog park, which now requires maintenance. We've opened up different facilities that over the years had not been used, and now we're requiring additional services. As far as our garbage pickup, you mentioned removing the 2 positions for crane operator.
Incorrect.
I know it's here.
No, those are the ones that are not crane operator.
The solid waste
Okay,
assistant
so
director is
regardless,
here.
the solid
All right,
waste.
okay.
So talking about solid waste, we have had
Madam Chair,
issues
if I may ask.
with. We have had issues over the last few years with garbage pickup. And anytime that there has been illnesses, there have been people who have been out because of heat sicknesses, just regular employees haven't been able to take their time off because they've had to stay on board because we haven't had anybody to fill those positions. And the part-time subcontracted work that we've had, a lot of times they don't have somebody to come in at the last minute and we still have that void. So what happens? Residents who had a garbage pickup on Thursday, now it's being done on Saturday. And we continue to try to piece whatever we have. So look, at the end of the day, this is very simple. We're having a conversation about the budget today. This is not about the budget. This is about setting a ceiling for the millage rate. We will have 2 hearings in September where we can iron out what positions are positions that can be outsourced, what positions can be cut, and we can figure out a permanent solution in September, and staff will have ample time to figure out, hey, you know what? We have 20 positions that can be outsourced. They'll save the city money. We'll be able to keep the services that we're offering residents, and we'll be able to provide $1.3 million in tax relief. That's
Madam
the
Vice Mayor,
ideal
if I may.
solution going forward, but we're not there today. You know, the discussion on the budget, oh, let's break out so that we can explore these options. This is not what we're voting on. We're
So-
voting on a ceiling for the millage rate. That's it.
So
We're
I'd
not
like to
voting
make-
on the budget today.
So the mayor apparently has landed, so let's give him an opportunity to join our meeting right now. Mr. Mayor, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, perfect. First off, Commissioner Fernandez conflates the issue by stating we're not voting on positions, but we are. We're voting today on setting the millage rate. I know you don't want to vote on that issue and you don't want to consider lowering it, but you need 4 votes. And at the end of the day, we have to make a decision and we have to come to the table. And I brought you a compromise, which will cut the millage rate by 1% and it will address the issue. You have 2 options, which is a lot of the residents were confused. They thought they thought that if we did not come to consensus that the rollback rate would take effect, it would be a $10 million hit. There's also another option, which is higher than the 2% that the vice mayor and myself proposed. I still think it should be 2%. I think it's an appropriate amount. I think it's correct. And I think that I have full faith and confidence in our department and our city that we can address those issues. So if you don't, you can take a 3-2 vote and it'll be, correct me if I'm wrong, Madam City Attorney, it could be around $3.2 million versus the $2.6 million 2%. Or we can come to consensus today and vote unanimously and cut the millage rate by 1%. It will be around 1.2, 1.23, 1.25 cut. We have positions that are being considered that I disagree with wholeheartedly. We do not need to grow these many positions in 1 year. We don't. We don't. We can find a few $100,000 in the budget to cut with opportunities to do that. We can bicker back and forth all we want, but at the end of the day, you need 4 votes. Unless the vice mayor is willing to make the decision to go along with setting the millage rate as is, then that's it. Then we move forward. But I'm not willing to. So I stand by my 1%. I made a motion. There's a second on the floor. We discussed it for over an hour and a half. And I think that it's reasonable. It's reasonable. It's building consensus. I know you're not getting your way. I get it. But we can move on. There's no need to attack people. There's no need to discuss things. There's no need to, talk about when you own Gables Insider and the things that you wrote on it. And you were in favor of millage rate cut then. Now you're not in favor of it. At the end of the day, that's nonsensical. It doesn't have any basis today. And we move on. Set the millage rate. I offered you a 1% reduction. We move on and we address the issue moving forward with regards to capital projects. There's no need to spend the entire day just going back and forth on this issue. I have a motion on the floor. I'd like to hear a vote on it. We can move forward. Unless the vice mayor is willing to say right now that she's willing. Excuse me 1 second. Excuse me.
So.
Unless the vice mayor is willing to say right now that she's willing to vote for a millage rate, then we have a motion on the floor.
We do have a motion on the floor, and it appears to me that the commission wants to move forward. So,
Regarding the
Clerk?
motion,
pardon?
regarding the motion, can I say something?
Yeah, you can say something.
Okay. I just find it very, very interesting that the mayor moved for the 1%. And to me, and I don't want to offend anyone, sounds and smells very strong like a sunshine violation. Why? How is it that you support documentation to support his motion of exactly 1%? What happened here?
I would have passed the gavel if he wasn't able to attend, and this was my position.
So
just like you
he knew
all.
that was your position? Or what, are you guys talking, meeting, what's happening?
No, he didn't know it was my position. That is my position.
So telepathically?
Are you telepathically talking with your colleagues that you don't want to have?
Absolutely not.
Well, if you're going to make that accusation, you have to wear it as well. And you're wearing it.
Absolutely. I mean, this is elementary. You just proposed the same motion as he did. And you provided facts and calculations, and actually not very accurate facts, but let's give you the credit of facts of a 1% to support his motion. Come on, everybody could see through that.
No, ma'am.
Commissioner,
inaccurate
Madam Vice Mayor,
because
Madam-
I haven't
Madam-
reached a full 1% here yet. I'm trying to help staff out in areas where I don't think that we need the level of full-time employees in building this budget to guarantees that we will have to maintain this millage rate forevermore. Okay? So if you're going to lay out these type of accusations, I can point out a number of instances that smell.
Madam
And
Vice
still
Mayor, if I
smell.
may, may I say something really quickly? Look,
Yeah.
He's nervous.
Pardon?
He's nervous.
He's on an iPhone at an
Okay.
airport,
I'm
and you're making
I'm on an iPhone.
inappropriate.
Hold on 1 second. Hold on. Let me respond to that, please. I'm on an iPhone with my daughters trying to get bags off of the overhead compartment while I'm letting people pass me. I'm not nervous, Commissioner Castro. What I am is just I have my hands full, trying to make everybody happy and to be considerate of the people around me. I would appreciate if you conduct yourself like a professional, okay? If you talk about violating the Sunshine Law, everybody knows that the three of you violated the Sunshine Law when you fired Peter Iglesias. And you did it in Tallahassee because I've heard from state representatives who told me that was the conversation, okay? But let's move on from that. Let's stop
Because you got
wasting
caught, you're
time.
making lines.
You have a 1% reduction in the military here. Take it. If you don't take it, you're gonna basically cause the budget to suffer $3.2 million in reductions. Unless the vice mayor is willing to move, because I came down from 2%, I'm coming down to 1%. You have to play ball. You can't continue to just bully your way around and doing as you please, the three of you. You got to take a vote. And if you don't do it, you have two options. You roll back to the millage rate, which is going to cost you $10 million, or you have a $3.2 million, which is over 2%. I'm telling you, just vote on 1%. The residents will be happy, the business community will be happy, and everything will be perfectly fine. That's my advice to you. There's a motion and a second. I would like Madam City Attorney, Madam Chair, to have a vote on it.
Well, I guess, Mr. Mayor, maybe you're on vacation and you don't have access to your email, but residents have been very clear in the emails they've been sending us. They do not want us to cut the millage rate.
It doesn't matter.
65%, 65 out of 85 emails that have been received have been against it. And like I said earlier, I don't think you were privy to that part of the conversation. Even at restaurants yesterday, I had 3 people come up to my table to ask that we keep the millage rate. So I don't see this demand for a cut to the millage rate that's only going to benefit out-of-town developers. The regular residents are going to get, as they said during the town hall meeting, $25, $28. With this proposal, they're going to be getting $12.50. They're going to get $9. We had people who are going to get 2 pennies. But you have out-of-town developers that are going to get at least $18,000. Those are the ones who are going to be benefiting while there has to be cuts. Again, I have no problem, as I stated during the last meeting, having a full conversation on this. Once we have the final details of the Teamsters contract, which is the biggest question marks that we have right now, because we're not sure what that's going to cost the city. And by September, we will know. And as I told the vice mayor, she has presented some options here, which I'm willing to consider. But we are not in a position today to strap the city, and as I told the vice mayor, basically jump off a cliff praying that you'll land in the water. That's just not something we can do today.
Again, Madam Chair, I'd like to respond to the gentleman since he basically stated, it doesn't matter where I am. I haven't missed a meeting in 11 and a half years. I'm going to put it on the record with the clerk there.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, we can't hear you.
You sound muffled. Maybe move your phone a little bit.
Can you hear me?
We hear you, but
Better.
we can't
It's better.
articulation.
Better now.
It's better.
Bottom line is this. It doesn't matter where I am. It's none of your business where I am. That's number one. I haven't missed a meeting in 11 and a half years as I've served this community.
So I'm going to go.
I want to just quickly make
Excuse me, I'm going to supplement the record because there's emails still coming in now. 10:55 a.m. Lower taxes, stronger community. Firm support for the proposed reduction in the millage rate. The email goes on. Another one here, 10:49 a.m. The more money you have, the more money you spend. Stop the insanity. And the Email goes on and addresses some details. 10:48 a.m. from another resident. Support for reduction in the millage rate. Okay. Another one at 10:40. Yes, cut the millage rate. Okay. You know, and they go on. Tallahassee says reduce the millage. So, one at 10:22. They support lowering the current millage rate due to the windfall of increased property tax dollars the city has benefited since 2021. You know, the more these properties increase in value, essentially, if we don't cut the millage rate, we've increased taxes. That's what you've done. So I think we have a motion on the floor.
And
We're ready for a vote.
I just need to address something that was said a little while ago. Somebody used the phrase bullying because 3 people here have one opinion and 2 people don't. Bullying. And the person using the word bullying, you know, hearing it from the mayor is like the pot calling the kettle black. And you said a little while ago about not doing personal. I think just using the word bullying to describe your colleagues, I think that's, you know, taking it personal. So, you know, let's leave the colorful language and let's focus on the task at hand. And again, we are not, Madam City Attorney, is this the millage rate? Are we setting the millage rate or are we establishing a ceiling?
It's the proposed millage rate, but it would be adopted.
Because we could agree to a 1% today, and that doesn't stop our colleagues from wanting another 1% in September.
Correct.
Right. So, yeah, and if you want more in September, that's fine too. I am not going to be moving for more. Now, with respect to decorum, you have to exercise it as well. And what happens, Mr. Castro, if you start the ball rolling in that direction, you're creating more lack of decorum on this commission. So I prefer to set the example than go back and forth on this. We have a motion on the floor. City Clerk, I think we're ready for a vote.
Madam Vice Mayor, before you move forward, would you like to take public input?
I think we had plenty of public input on Wednesday. I think our colleagues are ready to move forward on this particular motion. Okay. We have a number of emails that have been received, and public comment is not normal at budget meetings. We had a town hall meeting ahead of time and plenty of opportunity at that time. So I'd like to proceed with a vote at this time.
I will move to let public comment.
Second.
How many individuals do we have that want to speak publicly?
I have 3 in person. I have not checked Zoom yet.
Let's get 2 minutes apiece.
All right.
So we want to keep things moving here.
Thank you.
First speaker is David Renshaw.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is David Renshaw. I'm the business representative who proudly represents the general employees at City of Coral Gables. Again, good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager, Chiefs, Department Heads, and the lovely residents of City of Coral Gables. The Teamsters Union that proudly represents the general employees that we all have heard the city beautiful. How do we keep that city beautiful? How did we get to the city beautiful? We got there through the blood, sweat, and tears and the hard work of these general employees. I'm here on behalf of them to publicly object to the proposed millage rate reduction, whether it be 2%, whether it be 1%, as this shall have a negative impact to the general employees, and more so, this will have a major complexity to the parties' current ongoing negotiations. Yes, you have heard multiple times referenced about an ongoing negotiations. Well, on behalf of the general employees, again, that I proudly represent, they asked me, show them the money. This is not showing them the money. I have attended the previous commission meetings. I have attended the previous budget hearings, town hall meetings. If not in person, I have attended via virtual. So I am well versed and well involved of the current aspects of what's going on. We have all respectively heard that the police and fire will not be impacted. However, that statement needs to be a point of clarification. In meaning so, the proposed reduction may and shall have a secondary impact to the police and fire and the general public. How so? Allow me to present that. All general employees that I'm about to speak of would be impacted by this. Number one, the communication department. This is the first point of communication that the police officers and the firefighters and the first responders are the first point of contact. Second, the mechanics. Without the mechanics, this shall hinder the turnaround time of the important PMI maintenance and ongoing issues with the vehicles that may occur. Currently, those employees are underpaid with open vacancies and vacated positions. Police records, a true secondary extension to the police department regarding the abundance of current job responsibilities, reports, records, redactions with the body cam, etc. After a recent comp study, those individuals are underpaid. The IT department. Without technology, this city, the beautiful, comes to a stop. Without the IT department, which would completely compromise this whole aspect, is one cyber attack away. Another department is the code department. Year-around, this is an overtasked and oversaturated department, and without the code department and without sufficient staff within the code department, this burden and extra burden will be placed on the men and women and the police officers of extra responsibilities that they now have to attend to. Let's not forget about our public works. These folks strive and maintain to keep the city beautiful. They provide an exclusive service to the residents, and we call that a white glove service. And you know what? They're proud to do so. But with this proposed reduction, this shall also reduce the ability to perform as they currently are doing now. Not to mention, currently they are understaffed, underpaid, and dealing with an unprecedented set of a high record of heat index. The amount of heat-related incidences have increased drastically this summer. This is the season. Not the season for the holidays, but the season for hurricanes. It's not a matter of if, it's when. When a storm hits, these frontline workers at the public works are going to be the first ones that you call upon, as you've done before in the past and as they have performed in the past. The general employees are at a pivotal time right now. This is the time that we still need to move forward, and we're still clawing back from 2009. How much longer do these general employees have to wait? By this proposed millage reduction, it will only further delay the accomplishments that we're trying to do, including impact, retention, and ongoing attraction. In closing, for the above reasons, Teamsters Local 769, on behalf of the bargaining unit employees and general employees, we object to the proposed millage rate reduction, whether it be 2%, whether it be 1%. Again, we're still at the bargaining table. At the end, the juice is not worth the squeeze. Thank you. And thank you on behalf of the general employees that we proudly represent.
Thank you, Mr. Renshaw. Just a couple of quick notes here. There are no reductions in mechanics in the 1% reduction. First responders, record keepers, IT department, and as far as the sanitation workers, the sheet that I provided included the crane operator, and we continue to work with the part-time folks. We've worked with part-time folks. The city has not added or annexed any additional areas. I don't know where that vote's going to go in the future, and we can address that when the time comes. That's a totally different analysis. That may never happen. So thank you for taking time to provide comments. Do we have any other public speakers?
Yes, ma'am. Tom Wells.
Through the manager, I asked permission for the solid waste, after Tom Wells, for the solid waste assistant director to go ahead and provide more insight what a 1% reduction to solid waste would mean.
Any reduction that we have is going to affect solid waste workers. On the slide for Vice Mayor Anderson, I don't have part-time workers. I have temporary work that assist us during the summer.
I understand, and we understand that part-time versus temporary, we had that discussion, but for the purposes of our budget, it's identified as a part-time worker, so that's why I've called it consistently a part-time worker.
Okay, right now, we're in a deficit. I wrote an email when the city manager first got elected of the deficits that were happening in that department, and that was not considering any reductions. As it is right now, that department is really, really suffering.
Right. What I asked for was for 2 sanitation solid waste operators and sanitation workers, not a crane operator. The proposed was for us to freeze one of the crane operator positions. So that's what your side didn't have that.
So I've had a number of discussions with folks as well, and I understand that it's difficult to hire a crane operator. It is not a part-time position or a temporary position that's easy to fill. That is why my playing around with the numbers was putting in the crane operator, because that is a hard position to get on a temporary basis. And we can talk about temporary workers that help fill some of these vacancies at a lot lower cost to the residents. So, that was that situation there. So I had suggested, a break so we can discuss this, but let's move on. Mr. Wells, thank you for coming.
I'm sorry, I don't know if she
I
was
had
finished.
one more thing to say.
Okay.
For temporary workers, they're not CDL holders. So the temporary workers are just sanitation workers. In order to fulfill driver positions, they have to be full-time CDL drivers.
Vice Mayor, please listen to your people.
I am, and I'm looking here, and they're talking about solid waste worker, okay? If we need more time to discuss with department heads how we can try to accomplish the same level of service that we've been providing in the past, okay, then we can have that discussion. So no cuts, no cuts. Mr. Wells.
Yes, I was going to speak on not reducing the millage rate. However, before I get there, let's talk about this process. Section 2-81 of the City Code, Section 5 says, if the chairperson wishes to put forth a motion, the chairperson shall relinquish the gavel until the main motion on which the chairperson has spoken has been disposed of. Section 2-77A1 talks about how we'll follow Robert's Rules of Order. The 8th paragraph.
She did not make the motion.
The 1% motion was made by whom?
The mayor, who's not acting as chair. He made it via Zoom.
Oh.
Sorry, I just wanted to.
Never mind. I'll move to the second part of my discussion. Perfect.
But save yourself some time.
But, Rule 58, 8th paragraph, talks about how the person chairing the proceeding is not supposed to take an active part in the discussion. So review the 8th paragraph of Rule 58 is to Robert's Rules of Order, because I think that's kind of perverting this whole process, unfortunately. I think we should have chosen somebody else who doesn't take an active role in this process to chair this meeting. Now, as not lowering the millage rate, keeping the same millage rate we've had since 2016, we're in the bottom third of cities in Miami-Dade as far as taxation. We're 12th out of 35. Why do we need to get lower? And the people we benefit from this is Agave, Plaza Trustee LLC, the one that owned the plaza. They're getting a $41,000 tax cut from this. HGIT Coral Gables LLC, and you can look them up on Miami Property-Dade. They're the ones that own the Gables Station. They gained $30,000 from a 2% Okay, so those two numbers are 2.5% of the total number. If you want to reduce it 1%, they're still getting 2.5%. There's a difference between taxpayers and residents. I'm here to support residents today, not taxpayers. Please don't reduce the millage rate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Ms. Maria Cruz?
Here we go again. Mrs. Maria Cruz, 1447 Miller Road, Coral Gables, Florida. It's hard to sit here and listen to, let's work together. We should all work together. Let's do it. And then begin the personal attacks. And then the bullying starts. Well, no, it didn't start today. Last time we were here, I heard the mayor say, I am not going to bend. It's going to be 2% because you need four votes. I am not changing. You're going to have to change. That was said here in this chamber. So now he has heard the heat. He has gotten the heat. Now we're going to consider 1%, but we haven't discussed it. Two people came up with the same idea and were prepared to discuss it, but we haven't discussed it. Okay? I'm sorry. You know what? I live in the dark. I don't believe in the sunshine law anymore. Okay? I am tired of the hypocrisy. The mayor talks here about Disney World. Let's compare to Palm Beach. You know, we need a world-class Burger Bob's, but Fred won't be able to pick up the poop packages but once a week because we won't have the money to do that. So you know how it's going to be smelly? Better to remove the stations, because when you walk by them, all you're going to smell is the poop and we won't have the spray to put on it. And you know what I mean by that. When we talk about fully funded, the tower is fully funded. I guess the building that collapsed at Biltmore is fully funded. Yeah, Burger Bob also, we had the money. But when we start building, we don't have the money unless we said, oh, well, let's put away 10% more in case it goes up. No, that's not the truth. Let's start by saying Merrick's vision was not for Coral Gables to be a business hub. This is a new event. We were supposed to be a suburban bedroom community. That's what we're here for. The residents in the city moved to live peacefully, to have the services that we want, to have the fireworks at the 4th of July. Last time they tried to cut them, we almost have a rebellion here. We have an insurrection over that. Last time, somebody suggested not having the back pickup of the garbage. My God, I thought the world was coming to an end. And we keep trying to compare to Miami, Hialeah, West Miami. The people that do not want to pay for those services are free to move. We live in a free country. We are here, I've been here for 48 years, because we like the services. We like to be the city beautiful. We like people to call. Last time we had the bicycle path event, people would say, oh, we like to ride in your city because it's so beautiful. No, we're going to be like everybody else. We're going to have the ugliest place in town, and we're not going to be Palm Beach. I'm sorry. We talk about, the mayor today talked about giving relief to the residents. Yes, I am going to get, if it's 2%, $28.11 relief. And if it's 1%, it'll be 14.5 cents. Wait a second. I guess it'll be 14.5 because I can cut a penny in half. Let's stop with the hypocrisy. We talk about property values have risen. Yeah, so the expenses have risen too. You know what? I'm tired. Most of the, if, we talk about budget, I have the budget books at home because the mayor gave them to me. And you know what? There are many positions who were not funded, but the money was there. The money was budgeted. So now we're saying we need those positions. Yes, I don't want that garbage not to be picked up from my backyard or from my side yard at this point, and not less than 2 times a week. I'm sorry. That's what we're here for. That's what we moved here. We need to stop the shenanigans. We do not want to be Hialeah. We do not want to be Miami. I'm sorry. Those that want to live there are free to do so. And the people that live in condominiums, Brico has plenty of condominiums too. They don't have to be here if they don't like the way we do things.
So, Ms.
When I
Cruz,
moved here in 1976, when I bought my house, we didn't pay sanitation. We did not have a fire fee. All that was part of taxes. Taxes. We added that later. Okay? When we moved here, I didn't have to take care of my swale. Now I do. The city took care of that. Many things we have lost through the years, and now we're going to keep losing because we promise we're going to cut taxes, and we're going to cut taxes anyway because the king says so. I'm sorry. We don't have a king. We have a mayor that's the same as every commissioner, and I resent the fact that you 3 allow people to interrupt you and cut you off and answer while you're talking. You deserve to be respected. We elected you. You need to step up to the plate and don't allow people to interrupt. And I'm sorry, he's on the phone, so we have to let him in. He could have been here like everybody else. I'm sorry. I make plans to be here, so could everybody else. We knew a few weeks ago that it'd be today. No excuses. I'm tired. You need to step up to the plate. Thank you, Ms. Castro, for speaking up. You don't have to be embarrassed. You don't have to be demeaned. You don't have to take disrespect. And I'm sorry, when she's looking at you like you're a little kid, you need to stand up and say, I am not a child. I'm an adult, and you need to respect me.
Okay, Ms. Cruz, I appreciate your comments. Couple of corrections here. This meeting was originally set for July 31st. I rearranged my schedule to be able to be here on July 31st. Okay?
How is that
Mr.
possible?
Clerk, the clerk is saying it was not. It was always scheduled for this date.
No, ma'am, it was not.
No. At the time we were here at the last budget meeting, the mayor said he wasn't available in August, and it was set for July 31st. I had dental appointments scheduled for today. I had to move because of that. So because you didn't calendar it yet, doesn't mean that that's not what was discussed. Now, with regard
Sorry,
to poop bags,
Vice Mayor, I think the clerk has the opportunity to answer you.
Ma'am, I do know that at that meeting, the mayor said he would see everyone back here at the end of July.
Right.
But at no point was July 31st discussed.
Okay, he said he wasn't available in August.
He never said that.
Okay, so I had it calendared.
May I? Madam Vice Mayor, may I?
Yes, you may.
Okay. First off, I just want to put it for the record. Mr. Wells made multiple comments that are incorrect. And I was happy he corrected himself in the beginning there. Because he's a stickler for the charter and for code. And I found it odd that he didn't catch that.
You're garbled.
Number one.
You're garbled.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Take your time.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, talk a little more directly on the phone.
I found it odd that Mr. Wells did not catch the fact that, you're the chair. I was actually happy that he caught it and moved on from that. Let's be honest here, Mr. Clerk, since we're talking about actual facts here. We had a previous meeting before that was scheduled where I was out of town for business. I had to change my plans and cancel it. You said in a meeting, and I would like for you to clarify, you said in a meeting that you had contacted all the commissioners and they had said they would not change their schedule. And I failed to ask you a specific question. And that was, I said, did you tell them that it was me? And everybody said, no, I didn't know it was you. I didn't know it was you. Mr. Clerk, did Mr. Ariel Fernandez know that it was me that needed to reschedule the meeting? Yes or no? Tell me what you told me. Yes or
Yes,
no?
sir.
After I had
Okay.
already said
So
I was not available, correct?
Hold on. Wait, stop.
After I
Stop.
had said
Don't
I was
interrupt
not
me.
available,
Don't
correct?
interrupt me.
And then
Listen, don't interrupt
I
me.
gave you the
Don't
opportunity, and I said
you're
I'd
not
be the
inter-
first one making a motion to allow the mayor to participate because there were
why are
numerous
you-
members of
why are
staff who
you
were
in-
not going to be available on that date.
So,
Mr. Fernandez, why are you interrupting me? You're a stickler for interruption.
Oh, I'm
Don't
sorry.
do
I
that.
learned from you.
Don't do that. Well, listen, then teach yourself. Can I do it? I haven't interrupted anybody's meeting. I've been nice and patient. And learn
Even in the
different.
fight.
You should learn a lot of other things from me. You know? But let me just tell you, look, man, listen, we all can't be perfect at the end of the day.
No, that's true.
So you need to.
try
You
to be
knew
like
very
me,
well
though.
that it was me, and you all knew it was me, and you intentionally did not want to change the meeting 3 weeks ago. But we had the meeting. I had to cancel my business meeting. It's okay, not a problem. I did it. I could not change this. I could not change this trip. I was very clear, as the clerk just said. But you that I would see you at the end of July. Everybody knew it. I was kind. I said I can't be there the first week in August. You knew it. So every single person in the room had an option. I said, let's do it on Monday. Let's do it on Tuesday. Let's do it on Wednesday. Let's do it on Thursday. How about we do it on Friday? No, we can't. No, we can't. No times worked. Right or wrong, Mr. Clerk? Did you and I and my staff not try with all the commissioners to try to make it work? Did we? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
And they all said consistently, no, 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 no. So look.
At one
Yeah,
point or
they-
another, different members of the commission had issues with the scheduling, and rather than, affect those, since the date had already been set, I didn't want to change it at that time.
Yeah, and we were also coming to an end in regards to August 4th, and we had to vote. We had to vote to set the minutes. But look, Commissioner Castro wanted a cooling off period of 24 hours in between her town hall, which I think it was great that she had a town hall. I love town halls. I've been doing them for almost 12 years. They're a great way to talk to the people and a great way to talk to the business community. But nobody needs a 24-hour cooling off period. We could have had the meeting yesterday. Everybody was in town. We were available. And I told you that we could do it starting at 8 o'clock in the morning all the way to nighttime. People here like to have meetings after 5 o'clock. I would have had the meeting at 5 o'clock. Those are things. But no, knowing that I was out of town, they'd rather have me on Zoom. My point is simple, look, okay? Like Maria Cruz said, there's no kings here. We're here to serve. We'll give you an offer. But I'm also entitled. And you have your memory forgets. I'm also entitled to vote on what I think is in the best interest of the city. Just like my 3 colleagues in the middle of a commission meeting rammed down everybody's throat a city manager candidate who was not vetted. We did not see a resume and did not go through a process. And we have to accept that. That's it. We have to accept it. So why is that acceptable? But the fact that I want to lower the millage rate for residents, and that's Mr. Weldon, I want to reiterate again, even though you mentioned it, you have to, by state law, lower the millage rate for everyone. You can't be selective. And you love to mention the plaza, and you love to mention the Gables station. By the way, just for the record, 2 projects that I voted against. So if you're going to benefit the residents, you're also going to benefit the business community. And that's why I started by saying that 40% of our tax base comes from the business community. So it's good if they see a little bit of money in their pocket because they're reinvested in the city. They're already subsidizing our community by 40%. So at the end of the day, we're going back and forth. Why don't we just move forward? You have a 1%, just like you wanted the manager, you got the manager. You own the manager, the 3 of you voted for it, and we have to accept it. Why can't we move forward? Come together on a 1% reduction. Services are not going to be suffered, and we're going to be fine. So, Madam Vice Mayor, thank you for allowing me to speak.
So I just wanted to clarify some statements here so there's not any misconception by residents. We'll still have fireworks. We just will enhance the fireworks to be, instead of fireworks, laser or drone shows. That's something that, maybe the business community would want to support, and make a donation towards. We'll still have poop bags. We'll still have poop bag pickups. This is a zero-cut option that I had put in front of the commission. So,
Next speaker, Christopher Challenger.
Christopher Challenger, Coral Gables President, Fraternal Order Police, 265 Sevilla. Hello. I'm here to object the millage rate cut. And I know we're part of the group that's not affected by it, but the city, like anything, is a team. We're a team. It's a football team. If you have an offensive line and you have a star quarterback and your center's out, you're not going to do very well. We depend on our dispatchers. We depend on our records clerks. We depend on the public work. If they cannot do their job, it falls back on us. We end up having to do jobs that they do because they aren't able to do it at certain times. So when it says it doesn't affect us, it does affect us. And
So I'm just going to briefly pause you there because none of the positions that I put up there have anything to do with impacting you all. So IT is still going to be there. You know, the call center, there's no reductions there. This is a zero reduction option.
well, part of that is the motor pool. Our office is our car. If I can't get my car or it's not working properly, that severely affects our ability to provide services to the residents.
Again, and I'm sorry you've got the misimpression on that. There was no reductions. Every position for increasing the motor pool, maintaining the motor pool, getting those mechanics in there is in this budget, even with a 1% cut. So rest assured, I'm not trying to knock the wheels off of the current operation. This is maintaining current service and enhancing current service that we're going to be able to achieve both with police and fire and all the other services that we routinely provide.
Yes.
The risk here is growing the headcount in areas where, you know, it's going to give us less flexibility. So.
Well, I can tell you in my experience.
Back the time I just took, so.
In my experience, and we just finished a negotiation, which we actually trimmed a year off the deal because we couldn't come to an agreement. But when the garbage rate was lowered, the first thing that comes out, so that's not supposed to affect us. And I know when you cut taxes, it's not supposed to affect us. It's our budget. But the first thing that comes up in negotiation is, we have no money. We just cut the rate. We just cut this. So no matter what happens, it's not going to touch you. We're 30 plus vacancies. So if you have to give bigger raises, that costs money. If you do not have that money, you cannot give bigger raises, which leads to empty vacancies in departments. Yeah, you can trim fat here, but I was surprised when Mayor Lago read his statement because he made it sound like we were flushed with money. But since I've been president, it's always, we're tight with money. We don't have this when public safety is a super priority and we're down 30 vacancies and we're lowering millage rate. I don't see how it does not affect us. The only thing that I see this as is it's coming up to election time, and whether it passes or it doesn't pass, if I'm somebody, I could say, I'm the only one who tried to lower the taxes. They didn't. And if it passes, there's somebody here, it's not here right now, that uses that statement more than anybody. I lowered the taxes. And when you do that, you don't say, I lowered the taxes $8 a month for a resident. That doesn't sound good. But when you say, I am the only one who lowered taxes, it makes it sound like you're helping everybody. Now, $8 is a savings, but I don't think it's a savings the residents feel is worthy of cutting services. And that's why our union is against it. And I feel for my brothers and sisters, for the other employees, for the department, because it's tough on our salaries. And when you have less money, you don't raise salaries. Thank you.
I'm sorry, what's going to happen when you come back to the negotiating table in March?
Okay, let's get a question answered first before we have some information on the floor that appears to perhaps leave a misimpression for residents.
Well,
The 30 positions for the 30 vacancies is budgeted. The money is there. Our finance team budgets in potential increases in salaries that are within a realm of reason. Okay? So they are very forward-looking in budgeting. So no one's cutting any positions from
no,
police.
and I'm not saying
Oh,
it's cutting
this
any
is-
positions. The only thing I do say is I commend the staff for their budget. Did they budget for 30 vacancies, 30-plus vacancies? There's a reason why we have that vacancy. It's not because everybody's equal in Dade County or South Florida. That's not budgeted for. And if it increases, it puts a strain on everything. So
let's let the finance director answer what is budgeted, rather than us, who are not handling the budget, deal with that. And there's police vacancies for two reasons. Number one, it took a long time to get a vote on that budget, on that contract, okay? And perhaps we should have started negotiating earlier. That's a decision, the water's under the bridge. I can't bring that back. You can't bring that back. The same reason why I urge staff, city manager officers, to start negotiating with the Teamsters in February, so that we would be further along here, but we're not there yet because it didn't start until the summer. So, Finance Director, if you could assist us with what is budgeted as far as these 30 vacancies.
So all of the vacancies in police are budgeted for at the what is the expected position for them to come into. So if they're expected to come in as officers, they're budgeted for officers.
Let me go ahead and clear the record. Yes, they are budgeted for, but the funds that we're using for those police officers are being used in overtime hours. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chief Hudak. Yes, so the money is being depleted little by little because we don't have sufficient police officers to take care of the city. Now we're using those funds with the overtime that every officer right now in the city is obligated to do overtime. Overtime is 1.5.
May you address that, because we're looking forward. Are we able to fill the 30 vacancies, assuming we had qualified applicants that are approved?
Yes, so both are true, right? So the positions that are budgeted for in our budget estimate and in the current budget are fully budgeted. And so if we were to recruit however number of vacancies we have, we would have sufficient funds to cover each of those positions for the remainder of the year. It is our practice that any salary savings are only used, right? So any savings from a vacancy are only used to fund overtime, personnel cost, or expenses for recruitment. And so as we approve any overspending, we also allow for the ability to fill the position should a candidate come available.
But let me add one thing, Vice Mayor, if you don't mind. The crux of the issue of vacancies within the police department and a lot of the city departments is the fact that the salary that we offer and pay is very low compared to our neighboring police departments, public works department, and so on. So any cut in revenue, we would not be able to use it to attract and recruit and hire additional people. And that's not only Coral Gables, that's every city. People go to where they're being paid the most, and that's a factor that we should consider as we do our budget planning.
So in response, because I was here a little longer than you are as well, and went through the budget negotiations and the negotiations for the contract back in December when the contract was put on the table. It was put forth as a high offer because it was competitive. It is not a normal increase that was done for police because we were being competitive with the other cities. In fact, the facts are that even in cities in California where much higher salaries were put in place, didn't solve the problem. The problem is not many people want to become police officers. We have to work, everybody's working on recruitment. I don't know if you remember, there was people out, officers on Hollywood Beach to try to convince young folks that being a police officer was a wonderful career to move forward in. And every opportunity I get to do an event, engaging either our fire or police cadets to engage with the young people, to show them that there are job opportunities out there that they may have not thought about, and look at the camaraderie that exists in these departments, and you have amazing camaraderie, within the departments in supporting each other, because you have to, because like you said, you're a team.
I cannot disagree with you, and it was a competitive contract, but just as we provided a competitive contract, other departments are doing the same thing and raising the bar up. So we're all competing for the limited amount of folks that want to be police officers. That was my only point.
Yeah,
So Chief Hudak, you got a moment to give us your pearls of wisdom here on this?
Tell him, Chief.
My job is to make sure that we have enough officers on the street every day at the rate of 4.2 per thousand, which is double the national average. It's what our residents expect. It's what you all hold me accountable for doing. Whatever pot of money you decide is I'm going to make sure that happens. If I have to move people from specialized units, that's what's going to happen. Right now, the union and I and the HR director are talking about the mandatory overtime. From a history perspective, this is not the first time your police department has mandated overtime to cover the zones. The zones, which we have 12 of, are mandated by direction of this body, not this current body, that how many people I have to have on the street every time. All the other services, that is our focus, right? That is to make sure we have a presence all the time. Regardless of what it is, my job is to make sure we have enough people there. The competitive market now for policing nationwide is an all-out recruiting war. And we have had an increase since the last contract that was ratified by the union and approved by you all, has helped us retain people, but also help us recruit people. We are working overtime to get the processes through. We are a victim of our own successes, though, because the standards to be a police officer in Coral Gables, of which every resident enjoys, is higher or more demanding than any other department. Our backgrounds are the most thorough. And as soon as we get close to the end, we have to hire quickly because other departments can take our background and hire that person away and offer them more. The monies that finance has given us is absolutely yes. The only frozen position in the hierarchy of the police department, which has been frozen for about 9 or 10 years, has been the assistant chief's position. That is the only position that is not funded. All right. Do I need it? Yes. Can I work without it? Well, Chief Hanlon's doing double duties right now. I don't think it's fair for upward mobility, but hey, that's a decision I have to make based on the numbers I'm given. At the end of the day, commissioners, whatever you all decide that this number is going to be, the staff of the police department, the fire department, all the other departments are going to make it work. We always have. And I have been around long enough to see rollbacks and everything else where we have had to pivot and do things. As far as the contracts are concerned, in the future, we are going to have to maintain a competitive process. You all just offered, and the union accepted, the largest contract to the FOP in my history of 38 years here. And it's a start. It is a start, because right now, in California, the starting salaries are about $120,000 per officer, and they're not getting people. And we are. We're starting to get people. We're paying bonuses. We're looking at people that can fill the void faster by being certified. It's a unique way to go about it, and I am pretty confident that we're going to be able to really fill these vacancies quicker. The other unintended consequences of that, which we've had discussion before, is the promotions, which I'm moving forward on promotions this week, only because I can now schedule what kind of overtime I'm going to need to cover everything that we do. So I get it. I understand, this process. Whatever that number is, whether it's 3%, 2%, 1% flat, whatever, I have the confidence in my fellow directors that we're going to be able to make this work. We always have, because all of you get the phone calls from the constituents. Yes, sir.
I have a question. And it's for actually everybody who's been standing there at the last 20 minutes. We talk about team. We're all a team, all the departments, fire, police, sanitation, parks, everything, a team. And, it was mentioned at the town hall meeting, mentioned earlier today. What's happening now, if we're not touching police, we're not touching fire, we're basically shifting the burden onto every other department. Not only do they already have a burden because of proposed cuts, now they're taking on the burden of the other departments on top. It's like putting on weights and then adding more weights onto them. And earlier we was talking about the IT department impacting the mechanics fixing the cars. So even though obviously you can make do with what you've got, the fact that we're shifting the burden to other departments. And by the way, we talk about vacancies, and obviously the vital is filling the vacancies in police and filling the vacancies in fire. But we have vacancies in other departments that deal with our residents on a day-to-day basis. So isn't it true? I mean, you mentioned, I think at the town hall meeting, the fact that we could arguably shift the burden onto other departments does eventually impact your department and impact fire. Because you interact with the other, you depend on them for a lot of things.
So let me clarify here for you. The proposal that I put together does not cut IT, does not cut the mechanics. The additional positions are still budgeted for in this proposal.
Right, but this isn't a Wendy's buffet. You can go up there and pick, you like radishes, I don't want tomatoes.
This is not
the fact that some departments are going to be excluded, then the loss of funding will now be taken up by the other departments. We're just pushing it down to whoever's left.
So
whoever's not mentioned, the cuts are going to come from them.
So I don't think anybody in the police department is going to be impacted by whether we outsource sign shop or otherwise.
Yeah, well, we talked about IT and the mechanics, and
they
interact with parks, and parks interacts with we're a team.
Okay,
we all interact and we all work together, and we provide services, a collective service. And by the way, we are an expanding city. I'm not saying geographically. I'm saying we are activating parts of the city that we have never activated for decades. So that's, my area that I really, focus a lot on, community recreation. Years ago, every activity was at the youth center. Now you have activities throughout the city of Coral Gables. And the same thing with every other department. We are trying to make sure that the South Gables gets the same quality service that the Central Gables, that the North Gables. We are activating our city, and we're trying to provide a uniform service across the board. So if we start picking and choosing which department gets hit, which department doesn't get hit, the team gets hit. And that's my concern.
Okay, Commissioner Menendez, just to clarify here so we don't, again, have information that is going to be misinterpreted by residents. There is no reduction at all in Parks and Recreation. There's no reduction in the mechanics. There's no reduction. There's actually enhancements of IT here, the additional position. It wasn't in the June 1 budget. It's still in here. So,
but I'm sorry, they said there were vacancies and we're freezing some positions.
I believe the chief had mentioned that you were saying something about the sign shop that had nothing to do with police. Well, I believe the chief had mentioned during our meeting that if signage wasn't up to date, if you can elaborate.
So Again,
Wait.
I can't.
We can outsource it cheaper than having a full-time position.
However, again, so the police department relies on the sign shop. If one of our traffic direction signs is down, as far as the city's concerned, and I think legal will back me up on this, we have to put that up as quickly as possible.
Chief, I reached out to you in the middle of the night because at Church of Little Flower, a stop sign disappeared.
And we put
you worked on it.
And in the middle of the night, we put stop signs up. That's the midnight
It got done
shift.
quickly because the next day, rush hour in school, it would have been a disaster.
Look, as a department director and Commissioner, to your point, Vice Mayor, to your points, we have one hell of an administrative team in this city, and I've seen a lot of them. All you all have to do is decide what you want, and we will figure out at your direction what you want us to do as a department, because you're right. I'm going to absorb some things, like I said the other night. At 11 o'clock at night, nobody answers the phones, their work phones, and if it's an emergency, it comes to the police department. The only two groups that work around the clock are some people in sanitation cleaning the streets, the police officers and the firefighters. So we have to handle it, and they have to handle it until the end of the day. We will follow your lead. Once this decision is made, I really think it's going to be a hell of a lot easier for us as an administration through the manager to say, if this is what it is, this is where it's going to be affected. And that is a collective group of my fellow department heads about, okay, this is what I can do. Can I do without this? Can I do without that? Give us the dollar amount. We'll give you what you want. And with the understanding that services are not going to be affected in sanitation, code enforcement, police, fire. I mean, I think that's the bottom line. We're worried about the what ifs. In the police department, we put plans in place for what ifs, but we deal with the realities of it are. And I'm confident in the men and women of my department that they're going to pick up whatever we need to pick up if we have to until we're at that comfortable level. Just let us know what the number is. We're good to go. And I'm speaking for the police department. And I listen, it's a little uncomfortable for us to stand up here. I understand everybody's thinking about public safety. But you by these discussions, you're saying, okay, police and fire, you are the golden children. Nothing's going to happen.
But that's not true.
So anyway.
It's not. But if one of our employees needs help on the street, you want a cop there as quickly as possible. You want us working together because people on trucks have helped us solve crimes, have helped make people safe. So it is very interdependent. Just give us the number and we'll come back to you and let us know. To Commissioner Fernandez's point, if it's 1%, these are the numbers. We'll come back. We might be able to help out in the police department to get to whatever that bottom line number is instead of hypotheticals. That's my point. But understand, in the future, we are going to have to negotiate with the employees again to continue to stay competitive because that is not going away.
Mm-hmm.
That is not going away.
And that's going to happen in March. So the less money we have right now, the less possibilities we have to work on a strategic plan to retain our cops.
So-
it's not only about vacancies and filling them, it's about retaining them.
Right, no,
You're
and-
hindering
and I understand
the
that.
ability to do our job correctly.
I understand that. That's why I advocated
Madam
for
Vice
not
Mayor,
adding.
She's still talking, don't interrupt.
Excuse me, I can handle this.
Don't
I'm a big
interrupt while
girl.
she's interrupting. That's like a part of a movie.
Right. That's why I advocated not adding heads in areas where we can consider doing things more efficiently. Mary, did you have a comment to make?
Yeah, I apologize. I'm on a delay. I interrupted somebody, excuse me. The words cuts and cuts and cuts keep being used. We're not talking about cuts, please. The city had a $10 million tax increase this year. I just want to touch on a few things really quickly so we can move on to this vote. Number one, Mr. Challenger mentioned the word I. I wish my colleagues would take the same route. Be proud of the legislation you bring. Be proud of being responsible. Be proud.
You're breaking up, Mayor.
You're probably going to have to move to a different spot. We don't hear you.
Mayor.
Be proud of the project that you worked on for years and years and years and left a legacy. The parks that I've been able to get, I'm super proud of that. I'm super proud of that. So I think that's
Okay, we're losing you, Mayor.
it.
We're losing you.
Well, I don't want to take up any more time, but just in regards to budgeting, yes, our positions are budgeted for, which is a good thing. The only issue with that is Burger Bob's was budgeted for, and then you see what happens. The same thing happens all over the city. When you budget, sometimes you budget too much, but typically you budget less than what it is. But thank you for listening.
Okay, any other public comment?
Commissioner Menendez brought up a good point, though. And actually, I think you didn't even realize you were bringing it up. Expansion of the city. Our residents are currently considering annexation, something that could, at our current millage rate, cost the city $4.3 million in year one. That's going to go up if we lower the millage rate. That's an extra $4.3, maybe $4.7 million that we may have to find in a year down the road because of a millage rate cut that we do today if we do move forward with annexation. So that's something that, again, we will know by September where our residents stand on annexation. We do not know where our residents stand on annexation today.
The vote on the August ballot is a straw ballot. It still has to go through the county. It still has to be voted on by the Gables residents, and it may never, ever happen. But what we're doing here with the current budget that we have is we're creating more expense and more burden because we're creating more permanent positions that we've never had. So do we have any other public comment, Mr. Clark?
Yes, ma'am. Next speaker is David Perez.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, Mr. Manager, Mr. Clerk. You know, 3 years ago, I think it was about 3 years ago, might have been 2 years ago, I was up before this commission and I spoke about the need for additional staffing of firefighters for high rises. For high rises, you need to have 43 firefighters on duty because of the known risks. Yes, the city has made some instride on that. We've hired an additional 15 firefighters, but that still leaves us 18 firefighters short to deal with high rises. Now I'm going to ask a question. How many high rises do we have in the city? 10, 20, 30? I'll answer it for you. 120 known high rises in the city. We still have another 30 projects that are coming on board in the city. You can look down Salcedo. You can see the Codina project across from Mercedes-Benz. You can see the Alan Morris project right off of Ponce. You can see that there's another project on the drawing blocks right across from the public safety building, right on the corner. There's another high-rise project that potentially can go in there. And we have the Crafts project right off of Salcedo. Just to give you an example, you can look up and see the cranes in the city of Coral Gables. We have a total of 150 known high-rises, including those 30 projects. Right now, we're the only city in Miami-Dade County that does not meet the 43 firefighters on duty to deal with the high-rise. Outside of Key Biscayne, they're a single-station department with 7 members on duty, and they rely on automatic aid from the city of Miami. What does that mean? If there's a need for additional firefighters due to a high rise or anything beyond their capacity, it automatically goes out from dispatch, all those additional firefighters that they'll need. We, at this point, still rely on mutual aid. What does that mean? That means we will call out to neighboring fire departments and ask for the additional bodies, those 18 additional bodies that we'll need to deal with the high rise, and we are dependent on their availability and their closest station. So it could be one right across from Coral Way for the city of Miami. It could be right down the street on US 1, but if those units are out, we don't know where those next fire units are coming from. It's a matter of time. Right now, we have a new station coming up out of the ground. How are these cuts, these potential millage rate reduction, how is that going to affect this new station? To the point of this city continues to grow. Yes, it does. We have a new Jackson Care Urgent Center on the north end of the county. Since I spoke before this commission, we have a new ALF, Merrick Manor, right across from Havana Harry's. There's another ALF going up on 10th and Ponce, and we still have the Plaza and Riviera Home Health Care Center, which are daily calls to our department. We send units numbers of times to those already existing units, the Plaza and Riviera, and the more people want to come into the city of Coral Gables, because it's a world-class city, we give white glove service. We are the best when it comes to art, design, and everything else. People want to come here. Why? Because of that white glove service that we provide as a fire department. Give me 1 second. As I said, we continue to grow vertically. I mentioned all of those projects, and right across Douglas and Coral Way, we're looking at that Sears development where they could put in an additional 1,200 units. Yes, that's outside of the city of Coral Gables technically, but where do you think those people are going to come to dine? Where do you think those people are going to come to shop and spend their time? In the city of Coral Gables. They're going to cross Douglas, they're going to go on to Miracle Mile, and that's going to have an impact on our services. You know, when it comes to dealing with the fire department and the calls that are made, we don't ask, are you in favor of keeping the millage rate? Are you in favor of lowering the millage rate? We don't ask, are you Republican? Are you Democrat? Are you this or are you that? We provide a top level of service, and we're happy to do that. There are 130 members that I represent in the department that dedicate their lives each and every day to the residents. And I've heard in previous conversations that, and it's enraging, I'm going to tell you it's enraging. Well, you guys really don't see the same things that other departments see because it's the city of Coral Gables, because we provide a white glove service, because we're the first in this and the first in that. And I'm here to tell you that is absolutely not true. We see the same calls that other departments see. We deal with the same issues as Miami-Dade Fire, as City of Miami, as City of Hialeah. You know, all I ask is that we continue to be the white glove service city. We ask that you do that moving forward for public safety. We ask that you keep in mind not only the members that I represent, but their families as well. And, you know, I want to talk about a little bit that was discussed earlier on compensation. You know, there was an evergreen study that the city paid for. And what did that show? That showed that employees in the city are woefully underpaid in each sector of their career, beginning salaries, midterm, and seniority in the city of Coral Gables. We also talked about part-time versus full-time employees. And, you know, I've had discussions with some commissioners where it was expressed to me that family members enjoyed pensions, enjoyed being part of a union, and I would ask that you consider that moving forward, because if we continue to replace full-time employees or part-time employees, I'm going to tell you, you're going to face an issue, and it happens everywhere. That part-time employee is not there every day, 8 hours a day. So when a resident comes in, you might get another person, or when someone calls, you're going to get somebody else, and that whole situation needs to be explained once again. And that gets frustrating from a customer perspective, because now you're dealing with somebody else. Now you have to re-explain everything. And as far as a manager, you have someone who comes in for a few hours, and then there's the next person. And now you have to re-explain everything you explained to the first person that was there yesterday, and now this person needs to pick up from there. It's an issue of continuity. What ends up happening? Most of the work, most of the responsibility goes back to the full-time employee that's there each and every day, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And I can tell you it happened because that's exactly why I left Miami-Dade County after 15 years of public service in the county. Because at the time, the stock market crashed, the real estate market crashed, people were being let go and more was being put on each individual's plate. And it got to the point that it just was not a productive environment. And that's exactly why I left, and that's why I came to the city of Coral Gables. So again, I ask you, please vote against the millage rate reduction. We talked about annexation. If that goes through, that's additional impact on all of our service, not just public safety, and that certainly needs to be considered moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Vice Mayor, we're going to Zoom next. First speaker is going to be Sue Kowalewski.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm Sue Kowalewski. I live at 6830 Gratian Street here in the City Beautiful. And I want to make two observations first before I address the millage rate. First of all, Mayor Lago is very fond of saying that he is for what's best for the city. I have never, ever heard him say what's best for the residents. I think there's quite a distinction in the way that he votes. Number two, Vice Mayor Anderson, please, you are bloviating throughout this entire discussion. It is not helpful. It's hurtful to your image. And truthfully, we're just done with it. So please stop bloviating and allow the other commissioners to speak, because they are actually speaking on behalf of residents. Today, I'm representing the Coral Gables Neighbors Association. We have 16,000 residents who have opted in to be members of the Coral Gables Neighbors Association. Yesterday, we sent out an email to all 16,000 residents. And usually after we send out these emails, and by the way, that email endorsed not raising the millage rate. Usually we get numbers, dozens of emails from residents opining about issues. And I can tell you that out of the 16,000 emails that we sent out, there was one email that we received, only one email that said that they wanted a reduction in the millage rate. That's out of 16,000 residents. And I want to make that very clear. We speak for the residents. I think 3 commissioners on the dais speak for the residents. It's about time everyone, all 5, start voting on behalf of the residents' wishes. And therefore, we are all for not raising or lowering the millage rate, but keeping it the same. Please do what your residents want. Thank you.
Next speaker is Carlos Estrada.
Yes, thank you. My name is Carlos Estrada. I live in 424 Candy Avenue. I'm sorry, I was between bites of lunch when you called.
Thank you.
No problem. My question is, I have a hypothetical, because personally, what I've been hearing is almost like gloom and doom. Like the city is going to become, like Maria Perez says, Hialeah. I have a hypothetical question. If the revenue would have actually been 8 million instead of 10 million, would we be considering raising the millage rate to keep all these cuts and all these cuts in positions?
Are you waiting for an answer, or did we just lose you? We can't hear you.
I think he was eating a sandwich.
No, I was muted by someone. No, what I'm trying to say is, if our revenues would have only been 8 million, representing the 1 or 2% cut, instead of 10 million, would we then be considering a raise in the millage rate in order to keep all these necessary positions and all these necessary line item budget that have been presented, like the drones? Would we be considering a raise in the millage rate? Or would we just make do and operate with what we have?
Is that a hypothetical question, or?
Are you done, Mr. Estrada?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Any other public comment?
Yes, ma'am. Next speaker is Claudia Miro.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Claudia Miro. I reside at 343 Majorca Avenue. Good afternoon to everyone. I just wanted to express my support to not lower the millage rate. And I wanted to also speak to some of the comments that I had heard earlier. I keep hearing what we're not going to touch, what we're not going to lower, but we are lowering it. We're looking at lowering it 1%. So what I want to hear is what are the departments then that are going to be effective? If it's not IT, if it's not fire and police, supposedly, then what are those departments? And then the other observation I wanted to make, I worked in the public sector for 25 years, and I back up some of the comments that have been made here. When you're looking as a public sector employee, you're looking for a job, you know not to go to the city of Coral Gables. You want to go to the places that offer the better compensation, and that would be Miami-Dade County, City of Miami, Miami Beach, never City of Coral Gables, which has always boggled me as the most affluent city south of Manhattan, that we offer the lowest amount of pay for our employees. And I also think that I heard Chief Hudak's comments, who I admire and I respect. I heard his comments saying, you know what, we're going to make it happen no matter what. And that's the current administration. If somebody retires or decides that, you know what, like David Perez said, he couldn't take the load of having to do 2 and 3 jobs because the budgets are cut and there's not enough money, and you leave, you take that institutional knowledge with you, and you kind of have to start from scratch. And that affects the level and the quality of the service that the residents are getting. But not only that, and then Chief Hudak said, we're going to make it happen. And sure, that could possibly be the case. But here's the thing. If you cut my budget personally, if you cut my budget, I'm still going to feed my family, but we're not going to be eating steak and filet mignon. We're going to be we're going to be eating spaghetti. I live in Coral Gables. I want filet mignon. I don't want to have our services suffer and say, okay, yeah, we're making it happen. We're going to meet the needs as best as possible. I want to have the reason I moved to the city. I love the services here. I love the community. I love what, Commissioner Menendez said about having equitable services across, the entire city. So for a long time, North Gables, didn't see the same level of parks that South Gables or Central Gables saw. And now, it's on the table what's going to happen at Phillips Park in a few years. All of those things are exciting changes. And I don't want to see anything anywhere reduce in services. So again, I urge all of you to please consider what the majority of the residents want, and to do that in your voting. And on the other question I had is, when are we going to feel, if there was a reduction in the millage, when are we, the residents, going to start to feel the pinch? Is that going to be immediate? Is that going to happen right away? Is that going to be in 2 or 3 months? Is that going to be in time for elections? So that when we go out as residents, we remember what it is that is being done here today. Thank you very much.
Okay, next speaker is Maite Haley.
Hi, I'm not going to go through, good morning, I'm not going to go through the message that I went through at the town hall meeting, which was super informative, very well run. And I'm so grateful to Commissioner Castro and to our staff for being there so late and giving us all that information. And I thank you for your dedication to your job. And I see from what Chief Hudak has said and others who have come here today have said, they want to serve our city, but we've got to give them the right salaries, the right compensation so that they can provide for themselves and for their families. But today, I'm just really distressed that we have this level of, I know better than you, the resident, I know better than you, new commissioners, from a couple of our current commissioners. It's if 85 emails were received out of a city of 50,000 in favor of keeping our current millage rate and 10 in not favor, those are the engaged people. The people I've seen here speaking today are pretty much the same people that were there at the town hall. We are the engaged public. The rest of the public doesn't say anything. You've got to listen to the residents that are speaking up. Listen to the residents. That is my message. Don't tell us we don't know what we're talking about. Don't tell us, oh yeah, let's go have some coffee so that I can talk to you some more. No, no, no. Don't keep putting it off. Make the right decision for the residents today and keep the millage rate as is. Thank you.
Sarah Lane Conde. I'm asking them to unmute, so.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Hi. So I just wanted to mention that I really appreciate the effort to save the residents' money. In this case, however, I would like to keep the millage rate as it is. And the reason for that is that the savings, I don't think, are all that material to the residents. Even the large entities like the plaza, the savings that they would have are just not very material to their operation. And so I don't think that the savings is all that material. So, and I do think that, our expenses at the city have increased because of inflation. We want to offer reasonable salaries to get reasonable employees in the city. And I think that we can well afford that. And so I'm in favor of keeping the millage rate as it is. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it, ma'am.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Let's get the vote done.
Would you like me to call a roll on it?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, can I would like to say something. I want to emphasize that the majority of the residents, the ones that called, the ones that have emailed, the ones that were in the town hall, are all against lowering the millage rate. I also want to highlight the potential of negative impacts on the city's services if the millage rate is reduced. And I want to address I addressed the vice mayor's concerns about the condo owners by proposing a targeted solution. Stable finances and services attract more businesses and investors, fostering economic growth. I also want to point out potential future challenges, such as unexpected expenses, such as hurricanes, disasters, and other things that could occur to the city. Maintaining the millage rate is an investment to the city's future. And I really, really hope that it's not about who's right or who's wrong or who's going to win or who's going to lose. At the end of the day, we're here to represent the best interests of our residents. Let's please move forward with this vote, knowing that we're doing the right thing. Let's listen to our residents. And I'm saying this to all of my colleagues. It's clear. It's loud. Listen to them. These are the people that coming April are going to go ahead and reelect you. These people that you're hearing are the people who are going to decide if you're going to be here the next term or not. Are you going to please them? Are you going to listen to them? That's what this vote depends on.
I just want to, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mayor, Vice Mayor.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Along the lines of what Commissioner Castro said, the logic is in the world of politics, if you're running for reelection or you're running for office, you're pro making cuts. But sometimes you have to choose between the politics and the people. And in this situation, we will be impacting not only our workforce that are dedicated to the city, but we'll be impacting those services that our residents depend on. I mentioned politics because every day now on social media, you'll see posts, paid advertising on how 2 elected officials want to go one way and the other 3 don't care. They're going to vote to keep it the same way. It's politics. It's not about the people. I worked almost 13 years at the city of Miami. That's politics. And I'm sad, we were talking about Coral Gables going down in its quality if we keep on doing these types of political moves and we're no longer like Coral Gables. Well, I have bad news for all of you. Politically, we're the city of Miami. We're playing politics. Sometimes I hear things, and the first thing that pops into my mind is Alex Diaz de la Portilla, the chairman. You know, I would be worried about that, folks. They're coming after your services. The city of Miami politics is already here. I'm with the people, not the politics.
So in closing, I agree with you. This is all about politics, okay? But it's politics in a different way. This is not about this election coming up. I thought it would have been prudent last year to have a millage rate cut when we had over 5 times the property tax revenue that we have ever had before, even in our best years. That is a tax increase that this commission imposed last year. And I would hope that instead of expanding the number of employees in areas where we can more frugally get the work done, same work, I'm not talking with existing employees, but more frugally done, that we run a tight ship, because we don't, and I was very proud that we didn't lay off a single worker when COVID hit, unlike the other cities who, when they're flush with money, pile on additional positions. So let's go ahead and take the vote.
I think there's still somebody else waiting to speak.
Madam Vice Mayor, I missed a member of the public requesting to speak.
Okay.
Javier Baños.
Okay, Mr. Baños.
Good afternoon, ma'am, and to everyone at the commission. Thank you all for all the time you dedicated to this and for all the efforts you've made. Just want to point out what Debbie Register said at the town hall. You have a finance committee, okay, and a budget advisory committee, which you were gracious enough, ma'am, to appoint me in the prior 2 years. And they voted unanimously to reject this idea. It is the most regressive tax cut that you will do as a city. And it only works, you can do everything you plan to do. You can work with your colleagues to try to reduce the expenses in a way that makes sense. But this is, you're forcing a situation for what it respectfully seem like political issues. Let's work together. Let's try to get to a compromise on the actual expenditures. You could give the relief you seek, and you could give it directly to taxpayers as opposed to giving it to developers and to the commercial sector. There are many other ways to do this. Doing it this way forces an issue that doesn't need to be solved in this way. I say that respectfully.
And I appreciate your comments, and also, I appreciate the comments of our state legislators. We do need to take a vote, and then we can move forward.
So, Madam Vice Mayor, if you give me the courtesy, there's a few things that I have to state before you take your vote.
Sure.
And so I believe the motion, and I'll ask the city attorney and the clerk to correct me if I'm incorrect, is to adopt a millage that is 1% less than the current millage. And so that millage rate would be 5.503. That millage rate is 7.3% over the rollback rate of 5.1281. And so just so that, I know there's been a lot of discussion and back and forth, right? And so today what you are voting on is the millage rate that will go on our property tax notices. So it is the proposed millage rate. The millage rate will not be set until your first and second budget hearings in September, at which time you will set the tentative and adopted millage. And so this is just the proposed millage. This is, as everybody refers to it, as the ceiling, whatever is adopted today. And we've always said that it cannot be changed at the first hearing. It can be increased after the first hearing. However, it is a very exhaustive process and expensive because it requires, so typically it will not happen because of the time that we have in between the first and second hearing. I just want to make sure that we're clear. And so today you would be setting what goes on the property tax notices that go out to our residents, and it generally cannot be increased. After that, it can only be decreased. And so the 1% millage represents a $1,297,694 reduction to the estimated revenues based on the current millage. And so just for all of the discussions here, this is also not adopting the budget at this time. So we would work out whatever budget would be needed based on whatever decision is made here today. The 1% millage requires a 4/5 vote. If a 4/5 vote is not met, then we would need we would ask for another motion for some other options. And so if that doesn't happen, we can remind you what the other votes are.
Okay, we have a pending motion. Can we move forward? Unless you guys want to break and come back later, I think we can get moving forward and conclude this meeting.
Our Budget Advisory Board advised us that they didn't want us to lower the millage. You advised us it wasn't in the best interest of the city. Budget Director, the Finance Director also advised that it wasn't in the best interest of the city to lower the millage. The residents are asking us, the majority of the residents are asking us, do not lower the millage. And then we're going to turn around and do it. I mean, that right there, it's unheard of.
I did hear your comments. I'm still getting requests in to lower it. It's incumbent upon us to take a vote, or if you want to sit here for another hour and debate this, we can do that too, but we'll have to take a break. I've asked the clerk to call the roll so that we can take a vote.
Commissioner Castro?
No.
Commissioner Fernandez?
No.
Commissioner Menendez?
No.
Mayor Lago?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Anderson?
Yes. I'll pass the gavel. I'll make a motion to maintain the current millage rate.
I'll second.
I'm sorry, who seconded?
I did.
Thank you. Commissioner Fernandez?
Yes.
Commissioner Menendez?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Anderson?
Aren't I supposed to go last?
Oh,
no,
yes.
I passed
Commissioner
the gavel.
Castro?
You passed the gavel.
Yes.
Yeah, I did.
Mayor Lago?
Yes. I did say yes, by the way.
Okay. Vice Mayor Anderson?
Yes.
Thank you.
So just for purposes of clarity, so maintaining the current millage of 5.559 mils.
Yes, and that millage is 8.4% over the rollback rate, which is 5.1281.
And the actual final millage rate will be determined in September.
Yes, and so the 5.559 will go on the property tax notices that are due in just tomorrow. And then we will come back in September to set the tentative millage rate.
And Madam Vice
Before we
Mayor,
close it,
I just want to say thank you
Yes.
for making that motion. It gives us additional time to get all the questions answered, and my commitment remains the same to you on working towards a resolution for September.
So I also am going to ask to work on not making our head count more than what we need. And my version of need is probably different than other versions of need, because what we're going to do is we're going to handcuff ourselves on our ability to have raises for the existing employees that we need to provide, or existing services that we need to continue to maintain. So I want to be very, very surgical about how we handle additional positions that we put in.
Understood.
Okay?
And I'd support that 100%.
Yes, I want
I do too. I agree.
Thank you for making that decision. You have no idea the joy that's inside my heart right now.
Oh, surgical? Yes. I can be surgical. As you could see from my spreadsheet, I can be surgical.
Meeting adjourned?
Meeting's adjourned. Let's
right.
go.
Yeah.
Actually, I failed to ask you you're the next most senior.
No, I got time.
Recording stopped.